Hi.
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Nyesha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
Okay, my friends, once again, it is indeed time to get our talk on. It's Morning Talk with me, your host, J. Stan McCauley, along with the champions of talk this morning. Of course, we have talk champion, Jonathan Small, in the house. How was your weekend, Jonathan?
Weekend was fine, Stan, up until last night. That game really
messed with you, huh?
I guess I went to sleep on the game because I was turned off. But other than that, the weekend was really fine.
So last night must mean what Sunday night football?
Sunday night football, one of the biggest television.
Yeah. So that was the Broncos.
No,
I don't mean the Broncos, the Buccaneers.
The Buccaneers.
Yeah. That was a good game.
Well, it was a good game for the Buccaneers.
Right.
Not a good game for the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, did you expect them to do better?
Yes, I did. Actually, that was a home opener. I thought they would play better. I didn't think they. I mean, I knew it was a long shot to win.
Mm-hmm. Has Brady ever lost
to
the Cowboys?
I don't believe so, because he won the games when he was with the New England Patriots. Yeah. He won last season with Tampa Bay, so no, he's never lost.
Past performance is not a guarantee of future. They tell you that with investment, but I think it rings true with football.
Football, yeah. I mean, other than that, it was some other interesting games. I mean, it was nothing, a game that really stood out over the weekend. New England did actually play the Dolphins. Miami kind of put them away.
Oh, terribly. Crushed by a new coach too.
Yes.
And the new coach went on the air and told Belichick he better bring the strongest sunblock he can find.
Yeah. But I guess your team won. I guess you was rooting for Tampa Bay. I would assume.
Yes.
And
because I'm a Brady fan, so you know.
He looked very impressive as usual.
Well, I don't know how impressive he looked, but he won.
He won. I guess he got the job done. He
got
didn't
the job
make the
done.
mistakes,
right? You know.
But you can't get so down on one game. I mean, it's just one game.
Yeah, that's what my wife said. You know, it's just beginning of the season. Folks are tweaking up. You know, they got to get the pregame jitters out of the way and all this other stuff. So you know, they paying you millions of dollars. There's no room for pregame jitters.
No, I always just say overall the better team won last night.
The better teams won, right? Because someone won. Yeah, one of the two teams didn't have preseason jitters.
I don't think it was that. I think it was overall talent and execution. I think one team just came and made plays and we could not stop the run, which is a big problem. And we couldn't do anything offensively to get the ball down the field to score. I don't think it was jitters or nervousness. Sometimes you just can't.
Sometimes you're not as good as.
And on top of that, our quarterback, Dak Prescott, is out. He got hurt. Probably going to miss about 8 games.
Jeez.
Honestly, I didn't think he was really playing that good to me. I'm not wishing anything bad on the person, but I didn't think he looked at that impressive to me. But again, he's still the starting quarterback, and we got to go with the backup quarterback now, Cooper Rush.
Yeah, he brought his A game to the closing. As I recall, last year though, he did pretty good, didn't he?
Dak Prescott?
No.
Oh, he did good. Cooper Rush did good for the backup games that he played.
Yeah.
Yes, he did play very good. I remember the game he won.
Yeah, I remember that.
But, you know, you got to move on with what you have now.
Yeah, we don't play in the past. We live in the present. Past is gone. A lot of people like to live in the past, and for them the future is shoulda,
Right.
shoulda. Well, what should?
But it's a long season. That was just one game. You got 16 more games to go, so anything is possible. But the players just got to play much better. I mean, you got to make plays. I'm trying to reminisce the old Cowboys in '92, and it's just not happening. We're just not as good as that team. But anything is possible. But we'll see next week how I feel.
How long ago was '92?
30 years ago. But that was one of the best seasons in Cowboys history. But they don't look as good as that team, though, man.
Sound like Red Sox fans.
Yeah.
Well, I remember back in the '30s,
Well, see, that's how I want the Cowboys to play, But I got to be realistic. We can't play that style if you don't have the overall talent or hunger. It's something don't. I want the team to play like the '92 Cowboys, but they can't seem to get it executed. But that's how it is,
All right. Well, that sounds like Whalers fans. They're still camping out in front of the Civic Center waiting for their team to come back.
Yes.
But speaking of Whalers are synonymous with reggae. I think we have a special guest this morning who's going to bring us up to speed with some stuff. But of course, it is Monday, and that means we have a special guest, because every Monday we have special guest. Jonathan goes and he finds us great individuals from around the country and around the world to bring us up to speed on topics of great interest. I call these like our Monday morning master class, because all of the people that we always wind up getting are experts in their area of expertise. So, Mr. Small, you have the floor, sir.
Well, good morning to people out there. This morning on Morning Talk Live with J. Stan McCauley Talk Show, we have a guest who plays a key role in one of the largest reggae record labels, divisions, distributions in the world, actually, if I'm saying it correctly. The guest this morning, again, on Morning Talk Live with J. Stan on McCauley Talk Show. He is the Director of Catalog Development, VP Records, based out of Jamaica, New York. No other than Carter Van Pelt. Good morning, Carter. How are you doing?
Good morning, Jonathan. Good morning, Stan. How are you guys?
Doing fine.
Doing very well.
Very well. Well, Carter, before we get into our topic of discussion, could you kind of let people know a little bit about yourself and background?
Sure. And I won't give you any background details that would draw us back into a football conversation, even though I could.
Okay.
but yeah, so my background and my interest in Jamaican music really came out of being kind of, I would say I was trained in broadcast journalism, and I went into music from a radio side as a radio presenter and DJ. And I had, just from teenage years, an interest in Caribbean music, specifically reggae, Jamaican music. And that's been a constant in my life for longer than you were talking about when the Dallas Cowboys had their great team. We're going way back before that. I don't even mind telling you how old I am, but definitely going back into the 80s is when I started listening to reggae. So it's come a long way since then, reggae and dancehall. And the DJ thing has been a constant for me. I also used to write about the music for several magazines that are no longer around, unfortunately. The media landscape has changed drastically, but I'm glad to have a platform like this to talk about things. But coming up to the last 4 years, I've been the director of catalog at VP Records. As you said, based in Jamaica, Queens. I live in Brooklyn, New York. And I'm coming to you today from Brooklyn, Flatbush, Brooklyn. And I'm director of catalog development, as you said. And what is that? That involves promotion and marketing around a back catalog that's over 30,000 titles strong, going back to the late 70s when the company was founded in New York.
Carter, first of all, clarify something. The difference between reggae music and dancehall music basically consists of what?
Means different things to different people. And those kinds of genre names, they evolve over time, and there's a lot of nuance to it. But let me say when I use the terms, here's kind of what I'm referring to. Reggae was a music that came 100% out of Jamaica in the late 1960s. Mm-hmm. It really first emerged, let's say, in 1968. You can really pinpoint it. It's a specific rhythmic pattern. Has to do with the way the drums and the rhythm instruments, the guitar and keyboards are played. And quintessential reggae, Bob Marley and the Wailers, they're almost their entire sound is really reggae music. After Bob Marley died, in the middle 1980s, there was an emergence of a new street level sound that had a different rhythmic emphasis. And at that same time, digital production, digital drums and synthesizers came to dominate the production sound, and a style of vocal delivery that was no longer like singing. It was more analogous to rapping, which they call the DJ sound.
Right.
That became popular to where you had US major labels who were going after those artists, and that's what became known as dance hall. So loosely speaking, when I'm talking about dance hall, I'm talking about the sound of artists in the earliest days, like a Shabba Ranks, who most people would know, into the era of Beanie Man and Bounty Killer, Sean Paul, Vibes Cartel, and coming up to today, where you'd have, Spice, Shensia, Popcon, and the latest wave of dancehall artists like Skilly Bang.
Well, wouldn't DJ Yellowman be classified as the first dancehall artist?
Well, I wouldn't say first, but I would say he was a major player, and thank you for mentioning him. That's a disservice to him that I would just run right past his name. But Yellowman was a bridge, a really important bridge, because Yellowman was the MC who was doing his style of vocal over reggae tracks. Like you could hear the background song, and it would sound like reggae, but his delivery was the DJ style. And why did the term dance hall catch on? It's because this was music that was heard in dances in Jamaica, in the dance hall, in that cultural space, big sound systems, street parties, a certain cultural space. Okay. So that became known as dancehall. But yeah, props to Yellowman and Nicodemus and Lone Ranger and Toyin and that whole generation. And that even goes back to people before, like U-Roy was the first of the DJs that was popular on record. And so you could say the roots of dancehall, they go way back into the 60s.
Right.
In a sense.
Well, Carter, obviously VP Records played and continue to play a big role in the whole reggae dancehall music scene. Could you kind of let people know exactly how did VP Records became established, particularly here in the United States?
Yeah, well, to talk about the establishment in the United States, I have to talk about the roots in Jamaica. The company started from not just day one, but really day zero in the Jamaican music industry. The founders, Vincent and Patricia, so you notice those initials, V and P, Vincent and Patricia Chin, they started as one of their businesses was to change out jukeboxes, with 7-inch 45s with new music. And they would go around the island of Jamaica and change out jukeboxes for the owner of the jukeboxes. They'd put the new music in and they'd take the old music out. And the owner of the jukeboxes apparently wasn't interested in getting the old records back. So they started to hold on to those. And eventually, excuse me for coughing, they amassed enough of them to start a used record business. And that was their entry into the Jamaican music industry, which evolved into importing new records. And eventually it evolved into building a studio, which became, for a time, the most influential recording studio in Jamaica. But through circumstances and the political climate of the 1970s, they decided they wanted access to the American market. They were trying to export music, get music out up here from Jamaica. They decided to come here, and they did in 1977, and founded VP Records.
Mm-hmm. Now, VP Records actually consists of more than just a record store. It's like a record distribution to go along with being a record store, because there's two different components of VP Records. So could you kind of break down the whole operation of VP Records?
Sure. You could even say the label part is the other one, but you have a record store, and then for Randy's, which was what it was called in Jamaica. Randy's in Jamaica turned into what's called a one-stop. To be a competitive record store, what do you want to have? You want to have everyone's records, right?
Yes. So
they were in the business of not just having their own titles that they were producing on their label, but everyone. So they would try to make sure that people would always come. They knew they could get anyone's records. And that's how VP started as a distributor. So you aggregate, you get more and more stuff for your own shop. Eventually you have the buying power to not only stock your own shop, but to sell to others. In the United States, they became the distribution point for all the regional record stores and nationally as well. So by the middle 1980s, they were a major national independent distributor of Jamaican music and broader Caribbean music as well. But as a Jamaican company, they were primarily focused on what was happening in Jamaica at the time.
Okay, so now basically, if an artist wanted to record, let's say, a record or an album or make an album, would they actually have to go physically inside VP Records? I mean, how did that whole operation?
I mean, it's a relationship with the people who have access to the recording process, and it's on different levels. You have to get your song recorded, and you have to get that recording turned into a physical item that can be distributed. This is obviously long before any of the current streaming environment, but you had to have a relationship with somebody who could get that done for you, and financial resources if you were going to do it yourself. So I could say, I want to record, let's say I'm an artist and I had a song and I wanted to record it. I could try and pitch that to a producer. I could go to VP and talk to Mr. Chin and say, Mr. Chin, I have a song. And then he would probably have one of his people who handles auditions listen to me on the street, sing the song. There's lots of great film documentary of this process taking place. I recommend a documentary called Roots Rock Reggae, where you see, just some country guys with guitars in Jamaica auditioning their song. So then the producer decides if he hears a spark, something he wants to work with, then he might say, okay, I'll give you guys a shot. I will pay for the studio time and record you, and then decide if what we get is something that I think is worth pushing, if it'll work. Producers tended to record more than they would release, so they would have a stockpile of possible songs. That was one path. The other path was, if you could hustle and get the thing done on your own, then you're the producer and the artist. But then you need somebody to distribute the record still. So this is where VP came in a lot, is they had producers come to them with a tape, or like a recording, and said, I need you to get this on the market for me, because if I go press 100 or 200 copies, maybe all I can do is sell a few dozen of them, and all my friends want free copies, and beyond that, I'm stuck with a bunch of coasters. So that you really need somebody to help in the process. VP over the years on various scales, from the independent all the way on up to the more successful artists, have helped get artists' product to the market. Today they have an independent distribution arm called VPAL, which is VP affiliated labels. So that's where independents that aren't signed to VP, they can get their music distributed. So that model has continued. It's more sophisticated now than it was back in the 70s and 80s. But it's continued to this day in VP's business model.
Well, Carter, how big important influence was VP Records when it first established in New York? I mean, did it really catch on quickly? Did people gravitate to VP Records?
It's a good question. It didn't immediately. I think it was a literally mom and pop. When you're talking about mom and pop businesses, mom was Ms. Pat, Patricia Chin, and Pa was Vincent Chin. Mm-hmm. V&P, where it was a mom and pop business. It's very much a family business all this time. Vincent's son Clive has been instrumental in it. Their son Chris and Randy and daughter Angela, they run the business today. Anyway, I'm digressing into the sort of the family business model, but to say it has been a family business that started off very small, and there were a couple pivotal things that happened in terms of successful artists that they were working with that helped build a lot of momentum around it. And the first ones that I would identify have to do with a producer named Henry Junjo Laws, and he was the first producer of Barrington Levy and Yellowman. Mm-hmm. So when Barrington Levy and Yellowman came on the scene between 1979 and 1982, that was transitional because those artists became very relevant and very successful, and they sold a lot of records. And it elevated everyone from VP to it's basically made Junjo Laws. He may not be a household name to you guys, mm-hmm. But in the reggae universe, that's one of the most important producers of the entire history of Jamaican music. And he was very closely involved with VP. I don't think VP would have been the same without its relationship with Junjo in the 80s. Mm-hmm.
And then again, your role as director of catalog development basically consists of what again? Just to let people know exactly what you do.
It's funny, I'm doing it right now because I'm promoting the back catalog and telling the story. That's a big part of what I do. Is I just try and enlighten what this whole historical arc is about from Jamaica to New York, and that's all, in this kind of sense that we're just having a conversation about it is one thing, but also where we identify products for reissue. We have a catalog of physical reissues that is ongoing, where these kinds of same Barrington Levy and Yellowman titles, you can go buy physical copies of them today. But my role is also to make sure that they're being promoted in the digital streaming spaces as well, mm-hmm. that people are aware of these legacies, and hopefully that they will, we want to see people on the digital platforms add these songs to their playlists and their liked library of songs because they want to hear them. And that also then over time can involve, licensing for synchronization for motion pictures and advertising and various uses, just to keep that music relevant and also sampling and everything like that. I don't handle those things directly, but I'm trying to promote the music in a way that would make it more accessible for those different uses as time goes by. Mm-hmm. But I think I'll tell you this. One of the reasons I didn't have a specific marketing background when I took this job, which slightly intimidated me, but at the same time, somebody gave me a truism that marketing is storytelling. I have a journalism background, so storytelling and reporting, hopefully factually, is something that comes naturally to me. So my ability to sort of encapsulate what this is all about, that's why I do what I do. I like to talk about this stuff. I think that Jamaican music has an incredibly interesting history. And I like to share it with people. And I see that my microphone is starting to drop on me a little bit here. So you can ask me another question and I'm going to try and fix that.
Well, actually, Stan, do you have anything you want to ask the guests or any comments you want to make related towards the subject or not? That's why he's adjusting his mic.
And I don't have anything specifically. It's fascinating to hear the origin story and, the beginnings of, great things. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of times people take it for granted that, the greatness of a thing has always been there. Mm-hmm. or let me rephrase that. The greatness of a thing has been in existence from the beginning. And to hear the backstory and how things develop and get started is what I find so fascinating. Because
I think there's another thread to this, and I appreciate that you, Stan, that you mentioned that, because it was probably not the most remarkable story for a long time, and I think it happens because you may not know. When you think of Jamaica, you're not from Jamaica. You think of Jamaica as the primary cultural force there is descendants of African slaves. It's a colonial, post-colonial society. But because of the British presence there was a Chinese presence as well. People came, and also from India. The Chinese merchant class was very strong and has remained very strong in Jamaica. And the Chin family is one of quite a few families that got involved in the music industry as an extension of that merchant class proclivity, or whatever you want to call it. And so distributing records for them was a natural extension of other kinds of businesses that were in the family and that they're familiar with. So that's an important part of the story, a cultural aspect of the story that is particular here, that I don't think a lot of people would see it on the surface. But the Chins, who own VP Records, are Chinese Jamaican.
Well, you see, that's interesting that you just mentioned that, Carter, because when people think of Jamaica, they don't think of Chinese people. No. They don't think of Indian people. And I don't know if they think of white people, to be honest. They don't think of Asian
Maybe
people.
Not.
Yeah, I don't think that comes to mind. And the fact that you're white and you know the reggae scene and the reggae music backwards, and you know the history, I don't know if that would be surprising, Stan, but I don't think that's the first assumption that people get when they think of reggae.
People from outside of Jamaica may not think that way, but if I'm not mistaken, out of many cultures,
yes,
out of many people, one culture,
that's it.
And so that embraces all of what makes Jamaica. But yeah, very.
And you find that throughout the Caribbean in different ratios and proportions. Like if you went to Trinidad, you'd see, and anyone from Trinidad, if you look at Trinidad, you see a much bigger proportion and influence of the Indian culture there.
Yes,
you can see it in the people. You look at the people, you'll see that. It's in Jamaica as well. But yeah, these are all melting pots, but at the same time, very dominantly African, African culture, neo-African culture, cultural influences are primary, as it comes through, for sure, as it comes through this music and the identity of the music. You find very little Chinese or Indian influence in the popular music itself, although it's there. If you want to really drill into it, it's there, but it's almost, I would say, negligible. You know what I'm saying?
Well, Carter, one thing you can identify with the reggae dancehall music scene is exploded outside of Jamaica. The United States, Canada, and England would become the three major countries that would automatically come to mind. But in that presence, you have such a large Jamaican Caribbean population in the United States, England, certain parts of England, certain parts of Canada. But the reggae music and the dancehall music might surprise people that it's in all parts of the world. I mean, you go to Japan, and I believe at one point I heard that dancehall artist Tiger was more popular in Japan than Bob Marley.
Yeah, there are examples of that in different places where certain artists will find like disproportionate success, like where they're almost superstars in another country, where they're very, very, they're kind of like everyday artists in Jamaica. I think it's a very frustrating thing to a lot of Jamaican artists. They used to say about Marcus Garvey, a good man is never honored in his own country. But, when somebody just lives on the block, that you see them every day. They don't seem like extraordinary to you, but maybe they create some art, and that art is a lens that is, it can create this magnificent experience in somebody from a far off place. They'll project all of their own fantasy or escape desire to be somewhere else. It transports them. It has this incredibly powerful role, and that will elevate that artist to a huge stature. So it could happen with Tiger,
right?
It could happen with Apache Indian in India. It could happen with, I think of Jackie Brown. That's a wild one. This country kind of artist, Jackie Brown, was very, very popular in Brazil. It's happened all over with reggae music. So the way the world perceives the hit parade and the star artists of Jamaica and the way Jamaica perceives them, it's two different things entirely. Most Jamaicans would say that their greatest artists, like of the last 50 years, is Beres Hammond. But Beres Hammond isn't widely or wildly popular outside of Jamaican communities. Whereas, an artist like, I think of, Burning Spear recently toured again. He did a fan appreciation tour this summer. He's an enormously popular artist in the United States, but his moment in Jamaica was very small and very long ago. And so while he's a legend to a lot of people in reggae in Europe and the United States, in Jamaica, you'd have a hard time finding anyone who's under 30 who even has any idea who Burning Spear is.
Yes.
But I don't need to make your point for you to that extent. But I think you're 100% right with the tiger analogy, and it's also spawned artists in a place like Japan and all over the world. There are local artists that take this music up and do their own, interpretations of it. So you have Japanese reggae artists that are very popular in Japan. Most recently, an American reggae act won the Grammy Award.
Well, Carter, Carter, the whole landscape with the collaborations of the dancehall artists and the R&B artists really has expanded, particularly in the 2000s. When you see someone like Sean Paul collaborating with Beyonce, is that really great now that the R&B and the reggae or the dancehall can collaborate and come up with one unique sound more than just having just a straight out dancehall, straight out reggae, and then straight out R&B, straight out hip hop, when the two music components can collaborate? Does that make it even more special now that you have this type of balance?
Yeah, I think unless you're a really stuck in the mud kind of purist, I think it's good. I mean, when things blend together, you get new results. For people who are purists of dancehall, sometimes they don't like these pop collaborations. It just doesn't sound authentic to them. Same for reggae or anything. But honestly, Jamaican music needs access to global markets, and the Jamaican artists need access to the fan bases of these pop artists who are successful on a scale beyond what the Jamaican artists can really do on their own. So whether it's Beyonce or Ed Sheeran or Drake or Justin Bieber, I'm kind of popping off with names of people who I know have had dancehall or reggae collaborations. No Doubt a while ago now. There are many, but they definitely bring these artists, they give them a moment of exposure to a totally different, more mainstream audience. And sometimes those artists are able to leverage that into more success in their career, things that they wouldn't have been able to achieve on their own. So for career-wise, I think it's great. Musically, I think sometimes it works. I think sometimes it's interesting. VP has recently really been looking closely at the period of the 1990s when dance hall and hip hop were kind of moving side to side, moving in the same lane, closer and closer, which is that's something that happened here in New York. And recently did a Central Park Summer Stage show that brought together artists who were relevant in both the hip hop and dance hall space in the 90s, when those kinds of things first started happening. But I don't think there's nothing about it that I think is bad. I mean, I'm probably more of a purist, but I try to be aware of my own bias because I just like the purest sound of the Jamaican music, and I don't really need to mix it up. But I'm not, I think sometimes that stuff is very effective, and I'm glad to see it. I'm glad to see those artists get those opportunities.
Well, see, Carter, you had mentioned on a business marketing scale, because I don't want to say Sean Paul couldn't be so dominant without blending in to the R&B market. Like if his style of dancehall is just to target, let's say, the Jamaican Caribbean population and not try to get the U.S. other countries' population base towards a marketing scale. So if he wants to tap into the R&B market and he sees someone like Beyonce who's very successful, that would automatically have to make me believe that that's a business decision. As much as he may he may love R&B music, he may love Beyonce, but he has to realize that that's going to be a good marketing strategy to also tap into the R&B and other American-born acts and music here to go along with the dancehall music in Jamaica.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really guess about everybody's motivation, but I do know that Jamaica has always had this major force of, like, the cultural presence of American media and music is big in Jamaica, and it always has been, and it's affected the music to varying degrees from the days of jazz bands, right? The people who founded Jamaican music, if they could have come to New York and played jazz on 52nd Street, they would have done that. That's what they wanted, and that's what they love. All the way through, these artists they love what's current in America and in Black American music. And so I wouldn't say they just look at it strictly as a business decision, because a lot of them, I think, genuinely love American music, and to this day they love hip hop and R&B. So that's very sincere. But then you have certain artists also who are very, if it's Afrocentric or Jamaica centric, they understand like the pureness of their own indigenous kind of cultural expressions, and they're going to stick to that. And that's where I'm going to call back Burning Spear. He's a reggae artist all the way through. I mean, collaboration for him might be like where he would do a cover of a Grateful Dead song, but that's just like hardly really his identity. He is a pure reggae artist, and there are a lot of those.
It may not be a good fair comparison, but it almost sounds like to me what gospel music. You have some people who, when they find gospel artists branching out into secular music, and you have the true people who believe in just gospel, that they don't believe in doing anything other than gospel music. But I mean, it's like you can almost do both, but some people have problems with it. Some people don't have any problems with it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, again, if that's the same thing that what you're talking about with the true reggae dancehall music, that some of the artists believe it just has to be strictly dancehall roots and reggae and no other form of music blended in. But that's I mean, it's the same kind of thing, definitely. Right. The aspect of faith even plays into it too, because the presence, the Rastafari influence in Jamaica across a big part, that's a major force in the identity of reggae. So there are a lot of artists who would look at the music through the lens of, is this true to the Rastafari origins and spirit and aesthetic and everything. But it's a slippery slope too, because the global music influences are present everywhere, and even the most
hardened kind of Rastafarian artists, their music has not stayed strictly the same over the years. It's evolved too, and it's incorporated different influences. So I don't think anything is 100% pure all the while. Things have to change. You have to take on different influences as time goes by, because, you know.
Right.
What was it, Stan? What did you say, Stan, about the past is the past a while ago? And you were just talking about football.
Oh yeah. The past is the past, and some people want to live in the land of should, and then there's what's happening, and we live in it now.
And now, yeah.
And everything is affected by something, and so, you know, the sense of purists, but that's like you were suggesting, within gospel circles,
right?
Depending upon where you are in there, it gets ugly.
It gets ugly.
I will say this. Here's where I come down on the purist thing. Whatever you do, when you come out of a rich cultural tradition, something as exceptional as Jamaican music that's been globally influential, despite the fact that the island has a couple 3 million people, has had this global influence, and you come into this as a young artist, for me to really, really, really rate you, I want to sense that you know this tradition that you're coming from. Even if you're not emulating everything from your past, you're kind of doing it without even realizing it. But I really respect the ones who study the history and know the shoulders that they're standing on, because a lot of the greatest artists of the past in Jamaican music, they could barely make a living doing it, right? But their catalog, their legacy is so enormous. So when these artists, you know, come lately into the scene and they have no concept of any of that I find that frustrating. It's not as frustrating as my microphone dropping into my camera view.
Okay. Well, again, Carter, I mean, VP Records, are they branching out to anything beyond just music? I mean, are they getting into films or TVs? I mean, is VP Records just strictly music?
It's primarily music. I mean, there've been some, the initiatives in film or video or anything like that have primarily been just in marketing support of music releases. You can go to the VP Records YouTube channel, and I would recommend, you know, I would hope people would do that and check out. You can follow VP Records on Instagram, and also some of the affiliated labels within the VP Music Group, like Greensleeves Records, and you can look at the social media, and particularly the videos, and see what VP has out there, past and present. But not in terms of like major initiatives. The founder, Miss Pat, did publish a memoir year before last, and so there's some additional aspects, but it's for sure it's primarily music at the center of it.
Well, who are some of the current major artists that's still affiliated with VP Records at this present time?
You know, the business model has changed a lot. So where, you know, once upon a time, you'd have artists signing multi-album deals, and they would be with the label, or quote unquote signed to the label for a period of years. And it's changed now to where it tends to be shorter deals, or even singles or one album projects. So the relationship is different, but like most recently, VP Records had a big success with Spice, and her album, which featured production by Shaggy and an appearance by Sean Paul. The song Go Down There, or Go Down There, was a big hit. But like current artists like Joshi and Intense, Javalani, Squash, that this very new generation of artists is a priority of the company, but also working with artists who have been more established in the catalog, like Taurus Riley, Romaine Virgo, Christopher Martin, Jacure. The company has another album coming from Ja 9. Recently, I think Busy Signal completed his multi-album deal, but those are some of the more recent artists who have been affiliated with the label.
Well, does VP Records still has a major presence in the whole reggae dancehall music scene?
For sure. For sure. Absolutely. But this is a time in this era of social media, artists are able to leverage their own fan base in a way that they never could before. So the role of a label changes. VP can and does carry a lot of the load of marketing support. Some artists will and can do it alone. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Spice's new project that just came out. She has a new independently released project, her first after VP. So it'll be interesting to see how she's able to do on her own versus how she did with VP. I'm not here to predict that. I don't really know. But I think that this new environment that we're in sort of reflects the increased power that the artist has relative to the label. But the label still has an important role to play.
And will that important role still be the distribution? Is that still one of the biggest assets that VP Records has?
Yeah, distribution and marketing. Definitely, just like the support, all of the things that happen behind the scene in terms of organizing marketing campaigns, getting music videos made, everything that goes into, targeted, now it's all targeted digital promotion and all of the aspects of music promotion, playlisting, all of that stuff. That's a lot for an artist and their own team to carry. So a dedicated marketing department at a label is still going to have a role to play in getting music to the public and making people aware of things. So yeah, VP continues in that respect. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the overview I would give it.
Carter, sometimes people in their hometown don't always appreciate or take things for granted. And do you get a sense, if it's accurate or not, that people in New York, I'm not saying they take VP Records for granted, but is it really appreciated and valued, or has it just become the norm that you have a major record label distribution operation like VP Records, particularly in the #1 media capital in the world?
Right. Okay. Well, it's interesting too that I don't think VP is that well known in New York just because of its location. It's in Jamaica, Queens, which is pretty far flung. It's not a destination. It's not a neighborhood that most New Yorkers ever go to. So VP has a lot of work to do to have a presence in the New York community. It's not automatic. And so while some of the music that VP puts out there, people are listening to it on the street, I might hear a Spice or a Busy Signal track. And I mean, I definitely hear the VP catalog stuff all the time on the streets of Flatbush, playing out of bodegas or out of minivans. But people where that music is coming is does anyone know that that it has anything to do with VP? Not really. So VP's presence in New York is definitely, it's off most people's radar. I would say so. Right. But the company is definitely also interested in celebrating the heritage and making people aware that yes, there is this record store in Jamaica, Queens at 170 19 Jamaica Avenue that's been in the same space for 45 years, making it I think the longest continuously operating record store in the Northeast. Well, okay, there's the African Record Center here in Flatbush, but it's really up there. To say you can't find a lot of record stores that have been in the same location for that long. And that even extends back. The previous owners, they had a what's called a one stop, as I was talking about earlier, like a rock and roll record one stop that went back to the 1930s. So historically, VP Records has one of the most rich continuous histories at its location. I think it really should be landmarked. It's significant. Nobody knows that, but I'm glad to have the opportunity to tell you that. well, Carter, not only that, but the fact that it's been in business for 45 years. That's no joke either. Because a lot of companies come and go, or are sold, and go into other hands and just get absorbed into a bigger catalog, and this is the same family that's been running this company. And Ms. Pat, you know, is 60. She's 60 plus years in this thing now.
That's a long time.
Since really 1958. Help me with the math. Is that 64 years? Yeah.
68. It's definitely 60 years.
64 years.
Plus,
yeah.
64 years that you've had her. Yes. And again, I mean, VP Records, any things, any future plans that you are aware of that VP Records is working on or planning to do?
I mean, I will say that I mean, it hasn't been announced. Generally, I don't see any harm in talking about it because it's going to come out soon. We have a series called We Remember where we do catalog tributes to artists who have a great, you know, songwriting legacy or recorded history. And a couple of years ago, we had one called We Remember Dennis Brown. We're about to drop one called We Remember Bob Andy. And I know that that's not a household name to you guys, but Bob Andy was one of the greatest singer-songwriters in Jamaican history. And we've got this collection coming out that's all new recordings of Bob Andy classics by artists like Taurus Riley, Barris Hammonds, Romaine Virgo, people across the board in the catalog paying tribute. And so that's one that's coming out that I'm excited about, and I'll be involved with it. And we'll have in 2023 most likely another album by John Nine, probably by Ja Cure. And then the series like Reggae Gold, Soca Gold, Strictly the Best, those are ongoing. And like I said, you know, new singles by the younger generation, like Joshi and Intense and Javalani and Squash and whatnot, which may not be the taste of people who are, you know, like enthusiasts of 90s dance hall or definitely not of 70s reggae, but it's the up-to-date relevant music. And so, you know, there's something for everyone.
Now, Carter, this big parade that takes place in Brooklyn, New York, every single year, representing
just happened, yeah,
the Carnival or the Caribbean,
West Indian American Day Parade.
Yes, isn't this the U.S. if not the world?
Wow, you know, you're asking me a question that I can't answer as far as where it fits in terms of attendance. It's big though, because they have identified that it's over 1 million people who attend. I don't know how they do that, if that's satellite imagery or because how do you count that many people? Yeah. But it definitely fills the streets of Eastern Parkway for miles and miles with floats. And yeah, it's a centerpiece of New York's celebration of all Caribbean culture in the carnival tradition.
Kind of will be answering my own question. Why is this particular parade so big in the Caribbean presence, but you have such the largest Caribbean presence in New York and Brooklyn? I think that automatically answers the question. And carnival celebrations in Afro-Caribbean cultures are huge. And I think my understanding of them is that they tend to be like pre-Lenten type of celebrations, not literally in this sense because this one's in August, but that's when Carnival in Trinidad is, you know, it's in that period in the run up to Easter in the spring. And that's a part of the tradition, just like a revelry and celebration of, I mean, in a lot of the post-colonial cultures, just these extensions of the opportunity to express indigenous culture, you know, for descendants of slaves to express their Africanness out in public. That's a thing that has continued to be, you know, relevant in the Caribbean. And so that's why these kinds of celebrations, cultural identity at the forefront, they're super important. And so that's why you see it in Brooklyn in a major way every year, and you always will. And London Carnival is an equally big deal. Do you participate or play any role in the Caribbean West Indian Parade?
VP has over the years, although the carnival is very corporate and it's very expensive to participate in. I mean, I like to get, in order to get a sponsored, like a truck with a sound system on it. It's not something that VP does every year. It's been a few years since VP has been an active participant like that. But I know that they certainly send people to the Parkway, you know, with banners and flags and they're all, you know, they try and have a presence there, but it's not like there have been years when VP would have a truck, you know, and you'd see Elephant Man or Sizzla, or even I remember there's Vibes Cartel used to ride the float. Spice was on one the other day, but it's a big opportunity for artists to get on a truck and be seen. So VP definitely used to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, I mean, when you think of Brooklyn, New York, I mean, obviously the Jamaican Caribbean population is dominating. I don't know if it's exactly the area that you're in, but obviously it has its tremendous presence, and it goes beyond just the music now. I mean, I would assume any particular item that kind of represents Jamaica and the Caribbean, you could get it pretty easily in New York. It's like you really don't have to go to Jamaica. Some people will say even down in Florida, you can pretty much get everything you're looking for without having to leave Florida to go to Jamaica. Is that almost the same thing in New York to some degree?
To some degree. I can't speak on what it's like to be a Jamaican living in New York. If you're satisfied with like the things from home that you're able to get. I know that the community has definitely built those, you know, networks of distribution, whether it's, you know, callaloo or whatever spices you might need from home to make, you know, just the right kind of Scotch bonnet pepper, or the things that you need to make your life here feel like the best of what your life was like there. Can you get those things to some extent? Yeah, definitely. But there's no substitute for the ocean and the sun and the climate. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, they even renamed an area right near where I live called, which is a section of Flatbush Avenue, is now called Little Caribbean. You know, it's like a new designation, a neighborhood designation, because it has been for 40 years a center of Caribbean culture in New York, and definitely Jamaican culture. VP being based in Jamaica, Queens, is an interesting coincidence, because it was called Jamaica long before, and it just happened that a lot of Jamaicans moved there. But that part of Queens is very diverse, multicultural, and is as much Latino and South Asian, or more so, than it is Jamaican. I'm talking about in Queens where VP is based versus in Flatbush where I live.
Yeah, but isn't that whole southeast section of Queens, New York, heavily dominated Caribbean now? Not just Jamaica, New York, but when you get into other areas. South
Jamaica. Yeah, I mean, I don't know the ratios. I don't know the ratios and proportions, but suffice it to say that there are more than 500,000 Jamaicans alone in the New York City area. And if you extend that to all the other Caribbean islands, I don't know if it's 1 million Caribbean island people in the New York City metro, but it could be.
Well, you got the Haitians. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that adds the numbers.
The neighborhood where I live is very. There's a huge Haitian presence here, and longtime city council member representing this area from Haiti. And yeah, that's a big thing. When you turn on the radio in my area, you hear like Haitian pirate radio stations all up and down.
Right. Stan, I know we're wrapping up this show. You have anything you wanted to ask or address to our guests before we kind of close down?
No, I mean, I'm always in active listening mode. I'm learning and I'm listening, and you know, many things come to mind as he's talking. You know, the importance of one thing that came to mind was as you guys were talking about the importance of a label and people being able to do some of this on their own, and like seeing where this goes. And the thing that came to my mind is, you know, you have silos and super silos, but you really are only reaching those in your silo.
Right.
Like there's emerging artists that no one will ever hear of because they're only, it's only word of mouth in their super silo. Where a label, I think the pendulum will start to swing back, because the label allows you global in ways that you can't do. Like he was talking about the Chins being, coming out of being a merchant family.
Yes.
And having those networks to distribute worldwide is something you don't just stumble upon.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of that is missing when people think that they can do this on their own. Yeah, you can be successful, but everybody's not a Beyonce.
It's so true. It's so true. And I think it's healthy that artists are able to give it a go on their own, and it gives them leverage and negotiating power. But I think it also gives a lot of them a reality check.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we don't need a label. We'll just do it on our own. A very few will thread the needle and be able to be successful that way. Most of them will just run up against forces way beyond what they realize and just not be able to hack it.
Mm-hmm. Carter, I really enjoyed this program, but what I actually liked it a little bit beyond just what it was initially designed to do is we was able to talk beyond just VP Records. I mean, your history background and your knowledge, knowing about the history of Jamaica and the Caribbean was very enlightful and very insight to have. Because I think sometimes, we could just talk about VP Records and just talk about the business aspects, but it's kind of hard to separate when you get into reggae music and dancehall music, the history of Jamaica, without talking about some of the historical aspects of the country.
Sure. And I love it. I think it's the thing that I've had a lifelong passion for it. It's what drew me into this. It's just like it's Jamaican music, Caribbean culture is so different in terms of its music making expression and how prolific it is. It's so different from the environment I grew up in, that for me, it was just it energized me intellectually to want to know more about it and engage with it and learn about it. So yeah, I love to talk about it if you can't tell.
Right. Well, you're very sharp. You were very accurate, and
I hope I'm accurate.
I think you was accurate.
I don't know.
I mean, whatever you said you couldn't answer or you didn't know, you just said. I think it was only one question I might have asked you that you said you really don't know for sure. I think that was what the is the West Indian Caribbean parade the largest parade, and that's the only question I can remember. You mentioned it that you wasn't sure about. So I think you was just about 100% accurate, and you had very good information, and you seem very sincere too with what you believe in. So again,
thank you. That's the nicest thing you can say. I mean, I do sincerely love this music, and I just appreciate the fact that as a cultural outsider that, the Chin family has given me the opportunity to do what I do on their behalf, because I'm representing, their family history. I'm representing, a lot of cultural legacy of Jamaica. And I also have to say that now that I've been involved in this music as a DJ for 30 years, since the Dallas Cowboys had that great team.
Yeah.
And in that period of time, I've been accepted into the Jamaican cultural world in a way that I wouldn't have necessarily been able to foresee, and I'm grateful for that. And I don't take it for granted, and I hope that I just try and take that very, very seriously in my life, and treasure it, and uphold the integrity of it as much as I can.
Right. Well, again, it's a pleasure having you on. People are aware of you in this market now. If they weren't, hopefully we was able to give some people a little insight on VP Records and their whole operations. And again, I enjoyed interviewing you along with J. Stan McCauley as the host of his talk show, Morning Talk Live with J. Stan McCauley's talk show, and look forward to speaking to you in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jonathan and Stan. And if people want to follow VP Records, it's at VP Records on Instagram. And if you want to follow me, it's at Carter Van Pelt, just as it's spelled on the screen, at Carter Van Pelt, or at Coney Island Reggae, which is something we didn't talk about, but I'll just let people dip into that if they're interested.
Okay. Words well taken. I'll do that.
All right. Well, thank you for taking time out of your schedule.
My pleasure.
To join us, and Godspeed and continued success.
All the best to both of you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. Great interview.
Yes. Wasn't really planning this, not that long ago. I just looked into it, and he was able to be available for this particular segment, but it was not something I was really looking to plan for a long time. I mean, it just happened to come about. And I said, let me look into getting someone from VP Records. And like I just mentioned, I was glad it was able to go a little bit beyond just VP Records. When he started talking about the history of Jamaica, the Chinese people and the Indian people, I really liked it to hear that side of the conversation, because I think sometimes people don't realize that the country is not just, although the majority of people is going to be Afro, Black, Jamaican Black populations, but still you have an Indian,
many
cultures, as you just mentioned. We know in the United States you have a diversified population base, but sometimes people may not assume that in Jamaica and the Caribbean to do that.
All right.
Okay.
Well, my friends, we'll take a short break. And we'll be right back. Morning Talk. Stick and stay.
Is it the pedophile school administrator or taxation without representation? How do you define evil? Is it the pedophile school administrator or taxation without representation? Is it the gatekeeping community leaders who sell out the very people they are fighting for? Or is evil the politician that puts out lies and takes in cash? However you may classify evil, having to choose the lesser of two evils still leaves you with evil. No wonder so many people don't vote. It's time for constituents to flip the script and leave the plantation of party politics and free your political mind.
Morning Talk. We're here every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Every morning, tune in at 8 a.m. And there's always something special happening. It's Monday morning right now, if you're watching us live. And, of course, we have in studio none other than Jonathan Small, Talk champion.
It's good to be back here, Stan. We didn't do a show last week. And
that's right. It was Labor Day.
Labor Day, and
it was Labor Day. That's right. Labor Day. We had a repeat.
Mm-hmm.
Who was the repeat guest? I can't remember.
I think it was the aviation consultant. There's somebody that I was talking to had looked at the show,
and
I think I believe it was the aviation consultant. And shouldn't even forget the person's name so fast, because that was only like a couple of weeks ago. He was a guest on the show, and I think that was a show that you rebroadcast last week, if I'm not mistaken. But good to have an interview. I think the week before, the guest that I had scheduled was just not ready or able to be on this show. So
that's right. Yeah.
Kind of like the first interview we had in a couple of weeks. Actually.
You're getting itchy, huh?
Yeah, well, you want to make sure.
Jonathan likes his interviews.
Yeah, I think it brings something.
Well, I think you do such a great job
interviewing, and I look forward to it.
Yeah,
I definitely look forward to it, and I think it brings something to the show too.
Plus, I want to remind everybody that you could all, if you go to accesstv.org, you go to channel 3.
2 was it? I thought it was 2.
2.
Well, those were 2 was all about you, wasn't it?
Yeah, all about you.
And then face to face could have been 3.
Face to face, no. 3 is I think candid conversation.
Okay.
I think.
Well, maybe 2 is both. Then maybe 2 is all about you and face to face.
No, face to face is on another channel.
Another
I can't
channel.
remember.
Okay.
But if you go to our website, you can check it out. Jonathan Small.
Mm-hmm.
Great interviews. All about you.
Mm-hmm.
All the legacy interviews, and face to face was more news and hard hitting. They're public affairs. Yeah.
Right.
Those were great. Those were great shows. Great interviews.
Mm-hmm. Appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess there's a lot of big stories, small stories. I mean, you was mentioning something about the chairman of the MDC, Metropolitan District Commission, William DeBella. He's been on this show.
Yeah, he's been on several times. Yeah.
And I just spoke to him a few days ago.
Well, there's a lot of pressure on Big Bill.
Well, I think I need to read the article. I mean, you know about it, but I don't know anything about it. I didn't get a chance to look at the current.
It sounds like some internal drama on the board. Of the MDC, so that's always interesting.
Involving him, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The current referred to him as the flamboyant chairman of the MDC. Flamboyant MDC chairman William DeBella.
Well, this is not just
that's
about
in today's current.
Yeah, but this is not just about the Hartford Current. I mean, is it something that he could actually be detrimental to him?
Well, it seems like there's a power play going on at the MDC, and there might be some folks there would like to see him step down.
Oh, okay.
In fact, one of the members, like there are mayors that are on. I think the mayor of Newington, either Newington or West Hartford, has asked for him to step down.
Yeah, because it represents NBC.
That's usually a prelude to a forced vote.
Mm-hmm.
So,
think it's a big enough story, maybe, because I was looking into possibly inviting him on. I mean, he may not want to talk. Well, he doesn't kind of duck away from anything, though. I mean, he will address anything. I don't know if it's to his best interests. But, who knows? I mean, I was thinking about inviting him at some point to come back. He was on Morning Talk Live with Jay Stan McCauley Talk Show last year. So
yeah, he's been on.
He's been on, yeah. So I was just wondering. But like I said, I need to look at that article then, obviously, because I don't have much to really go by on. If I haven't read the article, I don't even know what we're talking about directly. I mean, other than what you're just telling me. So it would be helpful for me to read.
Yeah, cracks have begun to appear in support among his board for William A. DeBella, flamboyant chairman of the Metropolitan District Commission, the sprawling quasi-government agency that delivers water and sewer services to the capital region. The cause is a disagreement over $60,000 in legal fees. And, it's always the small things because their budget is $210 million a year.
Oh, okay.
So, what's $60,000? However, these things can cause fissures and cracks. So Mayor Sherry Cantor of West Hartford, one of the MDC's biggest service consumers, West Hartford, not Mayor Cantor, called for an independent investigation 8 weeks ago, saying, quote, the MDC must conduct itself in a manner that is transparent and accountable. More recently, Newington Mayor Beth DeBruno, I guess that's Del Buno, I guess that's how, I don't know how to pronounce it, urged MDC commissioners by letter to ask Chairman DeBella to voluntarily step down from his position as chairman at the minimum for at least the length of the investigation. So that's pretty heavy. So now you have the mayor of West Hartford and the mayor of Newington hinting at the sun is setting on your reign kind of thing.
Dang.
And so, it's politics. This is very political.
Yeah, obviously I spoke to William a few days ago, ironically, and we didn't talk about this. The only thing he had mentioned to me was that the company now I guess they're reducing their workforce.
Oh.
That was one of the main things he told me.
That sounds reasonable.
It sounds reasonable. They're able to do more with less.
And with technology. Yeah. And now that there's this downsizing because of the pandemic, plus you have people retiring.
Right.
And so you make adaptations, and you don't need as many people as you used to. So there's going to be a natural attrition and then downsizing.
Well, that's true on one sense. And then if you're getting retirements, then you have to have some positions filled. I mean, some industries are in dire need of help, employees. Some just don't need as many employees. So,
well, look at television production. Once upon a time, you had to have a camera person for every camera. You need a full crew. Now, in some productions, obviously, you need a full crew, like a football game.
Right.
But in many studio applications, you don't need a full crew. In fact, the technology exists now that you could do, like say up at the Capitol, CTN. Now, CTN's been doing this for a long time.
Right.
But it's becoming more and more a standard operating that you could literally come into a studio and there's no one in there, and the whole production could be done from Florida.
That's true.
Multi-camera. Control the lighting, the environment, the temperature, everything, and you don't need to be there. So you could do a shoot at a location, for a government entity like a Board of Education, City Hall, something like that, as long as it's in the same room. And even in multiple rooms, because they have a lot of the cameras now are robotic.
Right.
Once they're delivered, you could set them in there and they can move around, in small spaces, and you could do all of this online. Well, that's I only use that as to say the technology has replaced a lot of what used to take human power to do.
Well, there's no doubt about it. I mean, it's been a trend that's been growing over the past, certain amount of years. And at some point it catches up to a level that is already in full gear and it's in place. But it kind of brings up another story when you mention about technology in the era that we're in, because let's just say the traditional 9-to-5 job structure is what people was always accustomed to. And I say 9 to 5, I'm just saying 8 hours. It could be 7 to 3 o'clock, 7 to 3:30, however you want to classify it. But like a 40-hour work week, working for someone else. And I'm just hearing more people and seeing more examples that people are finding out ways to generate revenue and be profitable without having to work for somebody else in a traditional 9-to-5 job.
I think what we're experiencing, what you're seeing, and what many are experiencing in the country, is a willingness on the part of people to give that a shot.
Okay.
It hasn't been long enough for it to be like a wave that's going to be successful, because of course most business ventures succeed.
So let's say one example with technology, with the YouTube channel and social media. If you're able to capitalize on starting your own business online or doing something that you're getting people to subscribe to your YouTube channel, you might have to work, put the time in, put the hours in throughout the day and throughout the week, but you're not going to someone else as an employee.
That's true. That you have the chance of being just as successful of opening up your own comedy shop. Or being the next Michael Jackson.
Right.
Or the next Tom Brady.
Yes.
Or Dak. There's lots of people who play football.
Right.
But not a whole lot of them will make it to the NFL. And so there are a lot of people who want to be a YouTube sensation. But most will never even have a hint of a taste. There are millions of YouTube channels. Millions.
Right.
And, they're not going to be millions of superstars.
Right.
Someone's going to be there, but then someone's going to be an emerging actor too. So, but in more traditional, like, someone who is involved in delivering goods and services, lawn care, beauty salon, a restaurant, there's some other kind of venture that you can go out and actually master. There are people who have always thought of doing that. Having a communal space where people can come and meet and greet, and a bookstore. People have had all of these kinds of ideas, but they had a 9-to-5, and why would you quit your 9-to-5 to jump out into this land of the unknown? But because of what happened with the pandemic, a lot of people, they gave it a shot. And that's what we're seeing. We're still in that envelope.
Well, see, the thing about it is, I was looking online, and this police officer, he retired from the police department, but he became a realtor.
Yep.
So he was almost saying, like, the job as a police officer was just a security measure, just in case.
It was a job.
It was a job, right. But he realized he could make so much more revenue and profit sharing as a realtor. But the security of the job, the benefits, to know that if it doesn't work out, he still had a way to make a substantial living and he could retire off of something. I'm hearing more people saying today you need to have a side hustle. Like, to be honest, Stan,
You don't need to have a side hustle.
Well, you don't need to have a side hustle. I mean, 2 sources of income. You don't think that's the trend?
Well, I think a lot of that stuff is theoretical. I say, look, what people need to do is live within their means.
Well, yeah, that's true. I mean,
like I need a side hustle. Why? Because I need a 75-inch television.
Well, no, I mean, I would give it a different definition. Okay, let's say, for instance, Stan, your goal is you want to make $80,000. So you have a job, one job that you only qualify.
Why do you want to make $80,000?
Well, because you have something that you feel it fits into your budget range. You feel you need this amount of money coming in.
Like what? A new Defender?
No, it could be actually just owning a house. It could be keeping up with inflation. I mean, owning a house will cost money. You want to send, if you have children, your children to school. You want to be able to save for them. You might want to be. I'm just using 80,000 as an example. It don't have to be. It could be 40,000.
I got you.
But the mathematical component is, if my job pays me $40,000,
you need another job.
So then the side hustle becomes the other job.
Or a second job. They used to call it a second job. You had 2 jobs. Lots of people had 2 jobs. You went to work and then you went to your part-time job. Or you actually had 2 full-time jobs. You left one and went to the other one. They call it a side hustle. If you want to make more money, then you have to find a way to bring in more income. This is not rocket science. It's just simple. What are your desires and how are you going to pay for them?
But the side hustle sometimes can be your second job. When I say side hustle, really what I'm talking about is managing your time. A job, I mentioned this before, Cliff Thornton and other people told me, when you get a full-time job with the potential of having to do overtime, your time is going to be, you only have 24 hours in a day.
Jonathan, you talk like most people in America and on the planet don't work for a living.
No, but people are learning how to work smarter now. Your time, your job gives you an income for your labor and your time.
40 hours a week is full time. 8-hour day.
Right.
That's what people do. They work.
No, but I'm saying, don't you see more people finding other ways of, when I get into working for yourself, like the family member up in Boston?
He's not an example of anyone that's normal.
You don't think so?
Jonathan.
A day trader?
He's a day trader. How many day traders do you know?
He's the only one that I know personally.
Right. The day trading is an extremely high level skill set.
Right.
And to be successful at it, there's not a lot of people do that. I mean, there's a lot of people, but in the grand scheme of things that people do.
Well, see, he will tell you, and I got into it a little bit with the YouTube channel and other ventures, that you can do things today, and we've discussed this in the past. You can do more different things today than you can 50 years ago, just with the social media, internet access alone.
In social media, there's opportunities for you to do things in social media that you couldn't do years ago because it wasn't there.
Exactly.
Right. Now, soon you may be able to do some stuff on Mars. Once upon a time, you couldn't do nothing on Mars. But now that Elon's sending ships up there and setting up little camps and settlements, you may be able to get you a job on Mars or the moon.
Right.
I mean, there's always going to be something new. You get a job at Electric Boat. A lot of people never worked at Electric Boat. Electric Boat is looking to hire 4,000 people over the next several years. They will train you, put you through. They're looking for people as we speak.
Yeah.
Looking for people.
Let me give you another example. Maybe I can exemplify it on my part. I'm at the airport working throughout the week.
Yeah.
So tip monies comes along with the base salary. I want to make a transition. Now, we've talked about this in the past. It's very difficult to make money in media with this operation. If I could make and you could make, your interest may not be about making money, so that's a whole different story. I'm here now for what, 2 hours, maybe 2 to 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
If I could figure out to make the same amount of money I'm making 4 to 5 days a week at the airport, here for 2 to 3 hours, I'm getting the benefit of my time to go along with the same amount of money. I don't know if you want to classify that as working smarter or just learning the game.
No, I don't classify it as working smarter or anything else. I look at it as, if you want a job that will pay you $100 to $200 an hour, then you have to go and find that job. You have to have a skill set that someone will compensate you for that. That's all.
Well, some people turn things into a skill set. I mean, if you're a landscaper, I don't know if a landscaper makes $100 an hour, but let's just say you work for a company cutting grass. They pay you what, 17, 18. I know the guy who just left the airport works for a landscaping company. He makes $18 an hour. He may figure out at some point, I can go into business and make, like you just mentioned, $100 an hour. I can work for myself.
People pay you for your knowledge, your labor. There are various things for which people are compensated for. Depending upon the need for your services, you can demand a particular price. The desire to make money does not automatically command that the way to get that money is going to be there.
Right.
So people have to find a way to leverage whatever they bring to the table into a way that they're going to be compensated. And it's not built on what you think, what you would like, or what we refer to as the wonderful world of should or could. What skills do you have that are marketable that will return to you $100 for every hour of your labor? And how long can you keep that position?
Right.
If you're a psychiatrist, there's a shortage of psychiatrists. There's people who want to talk to them, but it takes you many, many years to become a psychiatrist. It costs a lot of money to go to school to become a psychiatrist. You got to go to medical school. After medical school, then you got to take a residency, this and the third. So now that you're a psychiatrist, you may be able to charge $200, $300, $400 an hour, depending upon who it is that are your patients and how good you are in delivering those services. It takes a long time to get there. So it's not like all of a sudden I want a job that's going to pay me $200 an hour. That's legitimate. What does an individual have that they can bring to the table where that is going to be a realistic return for their effort? And so, working smarter in that working smarter is not necessarily taking a 8-hour day and reducing it to a 2-hour day where you get the same amount of pay. That's not working smarter. That's having an asset within yourself or a skill set that will bring you more money. Working smarter is, rather than carrying 150 bricks up the steps one at a time, you carry them up with a lift device in 5 minutes.
Right.
That's working smarter.
Right.
So you don't have to take 3 hours to do it. You could do it in 5 minutes. That's working smarter.
Well, then maybe capitalizing on your time, then maybe that's a better way to define it. If it takes me 8 hours to earn,
you want to earn more and work less.
Because even my mechanic friend worked for a long time for other employees, and he had the skill set. You say what you have to bring to the table, so he knows how to fix cars. He knows about the car business, so he now buys and sell cars. Now there's a risk he's taking, and anybody can take when you still work. You give up a job, you give up certain benefits that you won't have when you do things like buying and selling automobiles for a living. But it's hard. Sometimes people say it's hard to pass up profits when he realizes he can buy a vehicle for $2,000, maybe, let's just say that as an example,
Mm-hmm.
and turn around and sell it for $5,000.
So you got $3,000. All right, so you got $3,000 profit. How long does it take him to? Does he have to work on a car?
Sometimes he may have to do a little light work. He doesn't put a lot of money and time into the car, but sometimes he might have to touch it up a little bit.
Right, so he finds a car that is well worth more than what he pays,
Mm-hmm.
and then he turns around and sells it for a little bit more than what it might be worth.
Right.
As long as he can make those connections, he's going to do well. How sustainable is that? Can he do that once a week? Can he do it twice a week?
Mm-hmm.
3 times a week? Once a day? There are car dealerships going out of business.
Out of business, yes. That's true. We was talking about.
And the people the car dealerships that go out of business are owned by somebody. They're business people.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're working for yourself and you're a sole proprietor,
Mm-hmm.
then you don't have any people to pay. You just gotta make sure all your paperwork and all that kind of stuff is in order. But if you go into business for yourself, now you're hiring people.
Right.
And you're paying people. Your people who work for you gonna get paid before you do. So you may be in business and be making less money than when you worked for someone else.
Yeah.
And so there are risks involved in going into business. So if you're working for yourself or are self-employed, that is a great place to be, because then you can make your own hours. You don't have to answer to anybody, and you have a lot more freedom. But the types of jobs that lend themselves to that are not, they come down. Like if you're a plumber, you could be in business for yourself, but you got to go out. You got to hustle. You got to make sure that you're marketing yourself. You got to, where are all the people that need plumbing? They call it ILO. Now you could go work for ILO.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, the only thing I'm saying is, like I say, my electrician friend, when I was thinking about working with him, his main source was he worked for a company, and then he would do a side job, like let's say on the weekend.
Right.
And then sometimes he was telling me, well, he made a good side job. I mean, at that time, late 80s, when he told me he made $400 for a side job, that sounded like a lot of money back then.
Yeah, but how often does he have a side job?
Yeah, it wasn't that often. It would
Right.
be like
So
every other
you
week.
can't quit your.
No, which he didn't quit though.
Right.
But I'm saying, but you make a transition at some point. You might decide. Now he's into his own business now. He left the company and now he's has his own electrical company now. For himself. Right. But it took him a while, like you mentioned. It just didn't happen just like that.
Right.
So I think everything will take time. So if I'm saying we're kind of in this era now, that do you gear young people up to tell them, do you need to just work a traditional 9-to-5 job, or you can have other ways that you can, become a worker? I mean, social media, YouTube channels might be one aspect.
I would not consider.
You wouldn't consider?
No.
That's not the way
that's
you
like,
gear people.
That's like you're gonna become a basketball star.
Okay.
I would equate the two of them to be the same.
Right.
You could become a basketball star. If you don't play for the NBA, you could play for some other lower level thing, or you could become a coach doing basketball. You're real good at that. So I would tell people, you need to find something that's going to be where you can get a good job.
Right.
Go work for someone.
Right.
Some people are good. Some people are entrepreneurs. I believe, that's just me, not necessarily the truth. I believe entrepreneurs are born. I used to have this conversation with Elaine Hairston on WKND when we used to do our radio program, Hairston and McCauley, Middays with Hairston and McCauley. And we had this ongoing conversation. I believe that entrepreneurs are born. There are other people that believe you can go to school and learn how to become an entrepreneur. You can learn how to do anything. But entrepreneurs, in my just stand, there's something that drives you to do what you do. And that comes from something in the person. Everyone is not going to just be a businessman.
Well, let me clarify something so I understand we're on the same page, because I'm hearing this now. The family member up in Boston, he might differ with you in this area, but I wanted to make sure. You would still tell people, young people in particular, graduating high school, seek a way that you could earn an income. I would think that would be your first step. But you would probably suggest to them, it's more likely that you're going to be employed for an employer than you will be caught up into the social media, YouTube, online ways to make money. You wouldn't
without question, hesitation, or Jonathan, that is fantasy land.
It is fantasy.
It's fantasy.
All right.
It's fantasy. I've been doing this for 40 years. I can't tell you the number of people who used to come into the TV station and tell me they were going to be the next Oprah.
Right.
Now, I'm not stepping on anybody's dream. If you think you can be the next Oprah, guess what? The possibility is out there, right? God wouldn't have given you the vision if it wasn't good, right? The desire is the confirmation that the destination is there. God wouldn't have put it in your spirit if it wouldn't go anywhere. So I'm going to help you make your dream come true, all right? To the best I can.
Right.
There's only one Oprah. They're not like 6,000 Oprahs. You going to be the next Oprah? Be the next you.
Right.
You know, lightning strikes in one place and then it strikes somewhere else some other time. You might like to be a successful on-air person, and that's admirable. But the opportunities to do that are as limited and finite as being a quarterback for the NFL. Unless the one that's there gets hurt, you're not going to be the starter.
Right.
Now, if he gets hurt, that's your window. Now you jump up in there, and there's 3 or 4 or 15 or 25 people behind you waiting. Becoming a YouTube sensation, where you can just be on YouTube, is not going to happen for most people.
Right.
It requires non-stop work to develop content for YouTube.
That people are going to pay you to subscribe to your YouTube channel.
If they're going to pay you to subscribe to, if CNN couldn't generate enough income for their streaming network that lasted for what, 6 weeks?
Something like that, yeah.
Through subscriptions, how's the average YouTube person making content? Creating content is very, very difficult. There are 24 hours in a day. The YouTube viewer has millions of things to watch. So if you don't have something to keep them coming back, just like Channel 3, just like Fox 61, just like the Bounce, all of these television networks need fresh content. Without it, what people saw last week, they don't want to see again. So they go to another network, and you just lost your person.
I really didn't want to go down this road, but
you can go anywhere.
I know with you, I can ask and address anything. So I know there's no hesitation with that, but I don't want people to say now I'm trying to come across negative or, kind of just find a way to do something just to prove a point. But in today's era, and unfortunately, Stan, however people feel about it, sex sells.
You'll do porn.
Pornography. You just took the word pornography. Now, if you got the stomach to get in front of a camera, show your body, nudity, you might get 5 million views weekly. And I'm not saying that's for everybody.
Well, I mean, if you want to be naked on TV for the views,
but I'm saying that avenue, some people say exists more again with the internet. Internet porn is a huge billion, if not a billion. It's a huge market. So what you said is true. You got more avenues today.
So the average housewife or house husband, right? The average human being,
right?
Anyone can do this. Sit at home, be on TV naked, so you can get subscribers. And then when folk are tired of looking at your naked behind, where are they gonna go?
Yeah,
they'll go somewhere else.
Right.
What can you possibly do that's going to create such a sensation that everyone's going to come and just look at you forever.
What you need to be aware of, though,
not you,
yeah,
but a person,
yeah. But what you need to be aware of now with the internet is the temptations that's out there, because the mechanism structure is already there, that you can do things like we mentioned today that you couldn't do in the past. So with the internet now, it provides you not just with the mechanisms, but at some point it might influence you, because some female, you may know a female that's into the business. You may see her doing something, but again, it all comes down to the individual character. Nobody can make you do something that you don't really want to do.
Well, under normal circumstances. Now, if you're under desperation, there's a lot of people doing stuff they would like not to do because someone is making them do it. Yes.
Okay, so that is a possibility too. But the biggest issue is, I'm finding out, and you may don't take my word, just talk to experts. As good as benefit that the internet has created to society, it has also caused some negative damage to society simultaneously.
But that's true with everything.
So
yeah.
Monitor what your children particularly are watching.
Well, absolutely.
They're getting these influences and these ideas, obviously, but the internet is playing a big role into that too.
Right, but those things are like given. I mean, well, I shouldn't say they're a given, but I would hope that everybody understands that there are certain dangers in society. Monitor your children when you're at the train station. Don't just let them run around.
Yeah,
someone might snatch them up. You know, now that there's more and more people at the train station, your kids could get kidnapped. Right. I mean, there's no end to that line of thought. Be careful when you're on the bus. I mean, you know. Yeah. Public transportation affords us to do stuff we couldn't do before, and now that we can, you know, there's danger.
I'm just wondering: is the 9-to-5 job structure competing? Is it more of a competition today now with social media and the internet?
I don't think.
You don't think it's more of a competition that people?
I think that people need to eat.
Right.
They either steal the food or work and buy the food.
Right.
But folk gonna eat.
Right.
Now, one way to eat is to get a job, make money so that you can eat. Now, if you think you could stay at home, watch porn on the internet, and not have to go outside and actually make money,
yeah,
more power to you.
Or engage in porn on the internet. That might be another way.
If people are engaging in porn on the internet as a way to make money, then their reality and their world is going to come crashing in on them in ways that they can't even begin to understand or anticipate, because that's not sustainable.
Well,
it's not sustainable.
Well, the thing is, it may not be sustainable, but it's another form of, and you said it already, competing against a vice now. See, some people would say, and
yeah,
I heard,
but Jonathan, the ongoing conversation about another form of income, it's just income. I don't know. People need money,
right?
So the issue is, how do you get it?
Right. Well, it's simple. You got
to work.
Yeah.
If you stand on the corner hustling, selling drugs, you are working. Everyone has to do something in exchange for money, unless you come from a family that plundered and has plenty of money to just throw out to everybody.
What you just said, though, and I at some point I do want to get somebody that knows about what you just talked about, standing on a street corner hustling. To this day, I still don't view that. It's a form of work, yes.
It is work.
But I don't consider that really a job or really work, because you're standing on a street corner, right? Somebody either comes up to you and you dig in your pocket and you make an exchange. That's part of that. That's really the bulk of your work. You work.
It's still you're providing a goods,
right? But
service.
Yeah, but I mean,
it is what they do to make money.
Yeah, but you say, okay, so it's defined as work, but is it really working?
Okay, this may be the heart of the issue here. What in your mind, or how do you define work? What is work to you?
Well, work can be different things. If a man is showing up for an employee, he's working for an employee. The man that you just said standing on a street corner, because I've heard people tell me those guys are not working. But again, you say it's work. I'll take it for that. Work is when you're giving up your time and your labor for a profit margin.
You don't think the person standing on the street corner is giving up their time?
Yeah, but see,
and labor.
Yeah,
in exchange for.
He is doing
money.
that, but see, Stan, that person.
It's not a legitimate.
No, but it's
socially acceptable line of work, but it is work nonetheless.
Yeah, but it's more to it than that. That guy that's standing on the street corner waiting for a customer, at any given moment, if he wants to go home for a while, lay down, do whatever he wants to do, he can do that for a couple hours and come right back because the profit margin is selling. You're working for an employee. You're working for an employer. If you get tired or you get distracted or something else comes about, you can't do what the drug dealer just did. You got to stay there until you finish your 8 hours. So that guy that's on the corner, he might be working, but is he really working though when you can leave for 2 hours?
You make it sound like because somebody goes to work and works for 8 hours, somehow they're like slaves.
I didn't say that. I'm not saying he's restricted. If I didn't say it, let me say it now. He's not a slave, but he's restricted.
He's being paid to do a job.
Right, but unlike the drug dealer, he can't leave. See, the drug dealer, when he gets fed up or whatever, he could just go someplace else, lounge around, get somebody else. I mean, it's still maybe it's a different form of work. I don't look at them as working though, but if you say they're working as a job, you say standing on the street corner selling drugs is working a job or working for yourself. I don't know if you really define that. Digging in your pocket, taking out crack, heroin, or angel dust, or PCP, exchanging it, that's the bulk of your work. So
do you think the mailman works?
The mailman works. Now, the mailman has to walk from door to door.
The mailman,
snow.
Right, but the drug dealer standing on the corner in the rain, in the snow. He got to worry about drive-bys. He got to worry about his stash. He got to worry about the police. He got to worry about the DEA.
Right.
He got to worry about informants, people ratting him out.
Right.
He got to worry about customers pulling off without paying.
Right. That's true.
His lifespan could be shut down
any given moment. Right.
At any given moment. He can't sleep at night.
Right.
Though you say he's going to go home and get to sleep. Right? So conversations I've had with certain people to do this kind of work is that they'll go home and not sleep because they're checking on the doors and seeing who will follow them home.
Right.
Then they have their little stash, and so they dig in a hole someplace to put the stash in, but they don't really put it in. They just put it there to make sure that it's safe. You can watch that for a week to make sure it's safe, and then go get your stuff and put it into the. You think it's just they stand on the corner?
Well, I guess
there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of work, and there's a lot of trials, tribulations. For what? You do better long term, almost working at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Well, but it's work by definition.
Well, now
the panhandler is working.
Yeah, that's true.
They show up in the rain on the same corner, work in the corner.
Right.
So I'm simply suggesting that not this is the kind of work that people should be doing.
Right.
But everyone has to do something, even if they don't work and they grow their own food. Mm-hmm. You have to go out and toil in the soil, plant the seed, water the seed, do the harvest, prepare the food prepare the harvest when it comes up. You have to can it so it doesn't spoil. In all things, one must work or he doesn't eat. If a man doesn't work, he shouldn't eat. Now, there's different ways that you can work. There's different methods to getting money.
Right.
Well, some pay more than others. That's all. It's no more complicated than that.
Well, now that you just define what a drug dealer really goes through, then I will look at it now differently that is a form of work, because I'm under the assumption that when he gets tired or he just wants to relax, he can just go home for 2 or 3 hours and then come back. But as you just stated, he's worried about who's following him when he goes home and other factors that goes into it. So no, that is work. That's a mental drain.
It's extremely mentally draining. Right. You don't think that they have to worry about the police? You stand on a corner selling drugs. The police know who you are.
Right.
Hey, Officer Friendly. Man, I'm going to clock off right now. I'm feeling a little bit tired. I'm going to go home, take a little disease, whatnot, and ease up. I don't generally do my own product, but I went to take a couple of hits, roll some tension off. And I'll be back tonight about 6.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
That's no.
Right.
No.
Well, and I am working on a guest who actually been through this, so hopefully I'll get it. And this person's made a complete transformation. I don't have this guest lined up, but hopefully this will bring another perspective to this argument. But now that you just mentioned what you give up, because sometimes you're giving up a lot of personal, mental, I guess peace of mind is the number one thing you're giving up when you engage yourself into illegal activity and then unethical activity.
It's illegal and unethical,
right?
And it's against the law as the law stands now.
But even then, like you say, when
down.
But even then, when I was mentioning pornography, you give up something too for that. I mean, if you got the stomach,
yeah, but porn is a very it's a dark hole to descend into, and it's a very, very addictive vice that is very exploitive. You talk about exploitation, and the people are exploited, and folk would exploit themselves. So you got the mystery person sitting at home online making a little money until some clown comes and kill you.
Yeah,
trying to find out where you are. These are not.
It's not worth.
These are not. I believe that these things are not grounded in solid ethical foundation. And there's plenty of world history that show when things aren't grounded in those kinds of solid moral foundation, that they bring doom to individuals, communities, societies, and nations. And those are not the ways to go after money. Money winds up being everything. So now you have states and cities who are justifying the sale of narcotics and weed and everything else because we need the tax revenue. Well, they want the money. So as long as it brings a profit, it's okay. And that speaks to a society's eventual doom.
Well, that's why I think sometimes we need to question again what we make legal and what we make illegal. If you turn drugs, legalizing drugs, like you say, marijuana is one good example, the detriment that it brings to it. Gambling, we've turned, now gambling legalizing is, I guess gambling is legalized in many states in America. It's regulated just like pornography. It's legal in California and probably a few other states, but it's regulated. We unfortunately, as a country, we can't turn back the clock and make these things illegal. Once you make something legal, it's kind of hard to turn back and saying, look, this is not good for our society. We need to make this illegal and shut this industry down, or that's just not the way.
It's better to not start than to have to go in and shut it down. Very difficult to take away those kinds of things.
Exactly.
Once you open up Pandora's box, it's out.
It's out there. Yeah.
So, people are free to do whatever they want to do. I think that when societies as a whole sanction things that aren't good for the whole, you start entering into problems. There will always be people who want certain things, and so as a justification to their wants, needs, desires, appetites, passions, and all those other things, they will say whatever needs to be said in order to get it. Then once they get it, they don't care if there's a negative aspect to it. They could care less.
Yeah.
They don't care what the negative is. They are more than well aware of the negative. And so if I addict you to gambling, right? So we're going to give you a $5. For $5, we're going to give you $200.
Right.
In gambling credits. Now, I know good and well that all I need to do is get you to gamble.
Right.
$5 to get you in? Fine. And then, so I'm going to get $5. You got to pay the $5. And then, boom, automatically you have $200 to gamble with. It doesn't matter whether it's $200 or $1,000. You're going to gamble it all away. And once you do that, now you start spending your real money. Particularly when you first start spending, you start winning. Get you a little bit taste of the candy. Now you start losing money. If the house lost money, they wouldn't be in business.
Right.
They're not going into sports betting so they can give you money. Most people gonna lose.
Lose, yeah.
That's not good for the society. It's not good for people. It's not good. And most of the people that are gambling are folks that are desperate. They want money.
Yeah.
There's no other way for them to get money, so they're gambling, and now they get hooked on gambling. People gamble in their houses.
It's a devastating vice.
Right. Horribly devastating. They have whole units at the casinos whose job it is to deal with folk who blow their brains out.
Yeah. That's a job, you're saying?
That's a job. I'm serious. There are people, you could put your house up, all kinds of stuff. They don't care about the economic impact that befalls you because of the debts you owe. They want the money.
Right.
You got to sell your children. They don't care what it takes. Bring me my money. You lost the money in what? A bet. A bet. A bet. So there's some ways that people can make money that are just horrible.
Well, again, you got to get to the consciousness, and that's why even that video we looked at last month with the young teenager getting into dealing drugs, and then he got into some debt, and if it wasn't for his friend bailing him out for $10,000, he would have been another statistic. So unfortunately, we are dealing, like you say, once you open up something, it's hard to really shut it down. So if you're considering legalizing drugs or feeling like the drug market needs to be legalized and regulated, I think there's some benefits of legalizing drugs and regulating it, but does it outweigh the damage? I mean, it's like we're being damaged in a society now having drugs illegal through gun violence and through other vices, people taking their hard-earned money, being addicted to drugs. So we're already paying a heavy price for it being illegal and not regulated. So now
we're paying a heavy price while it's illegal. We're paying a heavy price. So if we legalize it, I yes.
You know, would we be able to offset the damage now? Would we be able to make better strides? I mean, you don't feel personally legalizing marijuana would be the right direction. You say decriminalizing.
It should be decriminalized.
Right.
It certainly shouldn't be legalized.
But outright legalizing it. But the problem, Stan, however you want to look at it, and there's no getting around it, it's just too much money in it right now, having it illegal under the black market. And you would say, well, if you legalize it, you're just shifting the money. You're not really taking the money out of drugs. You're just shifting the money from one avenue to another avenue. So
there's too much money, and that's the thing. You can't serve God and mammon. Excuse me. So it's a matter of money. All of this it all comes down to money. It all comes down to money. And people love for money. They want the money. It's about getting paid. How much can I get paid? And so that's when money becomes the focus, then it becomes the justification. And
no, Stan, it comes down to money, I would say, for the individual. you have a network, you have high standards. You're not going to turn this into a pornography network because it can make more money. So it is money, Stan, but it comes down to the individual too.
Right, but individual determines that they would like to make money, and so that supersedes all things. Mm-hmm. If money becomes the rationale for why, if money becomes the motivator, then people will do whatever they have to do to get it.
Mm-hmm. And taking money out of something still is going to be harder than, like you say, open. Like if you take the money out of the drug, if you legalize drugs, it's going to definitely knock the black market side of drugs completely out.
Legalizing drugs doesn't remove money from the drugs. Legalizing drugs shifts who gets the money.
Well, that's what I mean. Okay, it just shifts the money, like I said before. Okay,
right, but it's still money. It's still about the money. Now, folk that wanna get high off marijuana can just grow your own little marijuana in your little private place and mind your business. Mm-hmm. And nothing to stop people from doing that. Then who's gonna know you smoke? Who's gonna know what you're growing?
Right.
You got a basement, and you got 1,000 plants down there, and you're using all kinds of electricity. You're not trying to grow something for yourself.
Yeah.
People make wine for themselves, and no one knows. No one knows. Mm-hmm. Now if you're out selling 30, 40 gallons of your homemade wine every week, yeah, you can run into a little bit of a problem. But for personal consumption, who knows? Who cares? Mm-hmm. But it's not about personal consumption. It's about the capacity to make money.
Right. But again, Stan, you can't use the excuse, well, the market is already out there. If I don't do it, somebody else is going to do it. That's why I say it still comes down to an individual choice.
Well, those are moral decisions.
Moral decisions. And most people, like you mentioned before, they do make good moral decisions. I focus on the ones that don't. Now, the drug market or the underground drug economy is a huge problem.
It is a huge problem.
Whether I talk about it or don't talk about it, but it's not the norm. Although to some people in that cycle, it may seem like it's the norm if you're in that circle of people. But it's really, like you say, most people are doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. And every now and then people might make a drastic mistake. They may get caught up into something that they shouldn't get caught up into. But even those numbers, as you mentioned, are still not that's still not the norm, though. But it can happen. You could be doing the right thing and make a drastic mistake, and then you find yourself in a devastating predicament. So if you don't have the drug market available, if you legalize it and regulate it, then it's unlikely that you're going to go into that type of industry. Experts like Cliff Thornton say he still feels you need to replace it, though, not just shift the money away from the low-level dealers and leave them with nothing. Shift the money, shift the resources, and then, make them have other avenues to generate money. You will probably come back and say, and Stan, there's nothing stopping these people from making money legitimately anyway.
Right. They can make, yeah, right. Absolutely.
Now, you may have some barriers like a felony on your record. You may have some other barriers that could limit you. But again, and that's why I still rather get someone who's been through this to really go in depth about it, because me describing it, I don't know anything about being a drug dealer, that drug market. So I'm only going by, a few people that I know who've done that. And the outcome has always come down to be very negative.
Absolutely.
Nothing really good has ever come out of it.
No, nothing good comes out of it. Mm-hmm. People are destroyed. Now, when criminal so-and-so decides to get it together and go straight, and now they're a legitimate business person, and they want to walk around like, all this, that, and the third, then everything is cool. Mm-hmm. But the people whose lives they destroyed, conveniently they forget about.
Yeah. I think the movie Original Gangster that Denzel Washington played, this guy Frank Lucas, was a good example to some degree.
American Gangster.
Okay, American Gangster. Yeah, he was telling the undercover cop all of the people he helped in Harlem, with different ways of helping them with money. But look at the damage that he did in Harlem too. Do you want to have it both ways?
Most people who do things that aren't good or wrong very rarely focus on the damage. They focus on the good that they've done.
Mm-hmm.
Every criminal and villain has someone they love and people they care about, and to those folk, they treat them very well.
Mm-hmm.
But the ruthlessness and non-caringness of what it is that they do, people that get destroyed by their actions, they don't care about.
Yeah, well, every man can repent from his sins.
Absolutely.
Now, so we get into a biblical practice of don't hold me against something that I did. That's between you and God and the higher power. Society may have a different viewpoint on it, though. You damage the community, you damage society.
The community, you attack the community, so the community may attack back.
Mm-hmm.
The community is not God.
Right.
Redemption and forgiveness of one's transgressions against the Almighty is another subject. Right.
To do that.
Because it presupposes that the Almighty has paid the price for your transgressions.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in that he has paid the price, your offenses are against him, ultimately. So if you want to be saved, you have to repent and reestablish a relationship with the Creator. But then the great equalizer is that all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. So one person's sin may be manifest in lying, another person's sin may be manifest in murder. To the actors of the particular crime, one may seem worse than the other, but to the judge, whose presence you have to stand in, both cause you to fall short. So, there are a lot of different crimes that people could commit, but they are all considered felonies.
Right.
So it doesn't really matter what the felony was. You have a felony. Like John Rowland is a felon.
He is a convicted felon.
He's a criminal.
Yeah, but he's been given
by definition.
Right.
He's a criminal. Right? But he's a more socially acceptable criminal than some other people.
Well, I mean,
but if you look at the record and didn't know who he was,
he's a criminal. Yeah, white collar criminal. However you want to classify
criminal.
Right.
A criminal by definition. Yeah, that doesn't mean that he's not a nice person or can't be nice. I know criminals. Criminals are regular people.
Yeah, but you can be a criminal. I don't know if you agree with this, and then become a law-abiding citizen. Can you? There's possible you can
absolutely.
Live a life of crime,
most criminals do obey the law, except for the one that they got caught and convicted on.
Right. Okay. Right.
And all of us are lawbreakers at some point if you're going over the speed limit.
Right. That's true. I had promised the Mr. Knight up in Boston that I would just talk about this a little bit. He sent me some type of video about housing. I forgot the country it was in. It was like a foreign country. How they have a good, affordable housing structure that he thinks the United States should implement. And I think the government kind of subsidized the housing, but it doesn't have like the so-called income restrictions that the more money you make, you'll still be eligible for the type of housing that exists. I think the country was Greece, some country in the far that would be considered the far east, Greece or some country like that. No, west. Would that be west if you're going to the?
Greece is near. I want to say near Italy.
Italy, yeah.
Across the Mediterranean.
So I don't know if that's the far. That's not Asia. Is like the far east.
Semi-Asian.
Semi-Asian. I don't know.
Eastern Europe, Western Europe, down there.
But whatever the case may be, I mean, they seem, because people are looking at this all over the United States and the world, that the housing cost is just going up and up and up. And it's very difficult for people to sustain, housing that they could afford. That's decent housing, not just any form of our housing. So the type of program that this country had, again, is like the middle class people can still be able to benefit from the housing that exists. That's, good quality, whether it's ownership of a home or just paying rent of a home. It's almost like the market rate, affordable rate structure that we try to implement sometime here in the United States. You build homes, like the property that they're building near, Dunkin' Donuts Stadium, is that the name that they still call it, or Yard Goats?
Downtown Hartford?
Downtown Hartford, yeah. The name of the state, that housing, that new form of housing that just recently opened.
Across the street from there, yeah.
Right.
The Downtown North development.
Well, if that housing is going from I think it's $1,500 for a studio to about $3,000.
Yeah, $1,500 to $3,000. There's a certain percentage of them that are going to be set aside for some sort of subsidized units.
So that would be more like a market rate housing. More, you can't put that at affordable rate. That would be more like a market rate.
Affordable is relative. Affordable is based upon an average of the rent. Now, people who can't afford to move in there, as far as they're concerned, everything is unaffordable. Mm-hmm. But that's not how affordable is determined. The affordable is determined by, the average income based upon the median, this, that, and the third, so that $1,500 may be affordable. Mm-hmm. Now, if you don't make that kind of money, it isn't affordable for you, which means you can't live there.
Right.
And you may be not, like, I can't live in Beverly Hills.
Right.
I cannot afford to live in Beverly Hills. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't mean I should move to Beverly Hills and demand that they make affordable housing so that I can live there. I need to go somewhere else and live.
Well, see, here's an interesting point now. Here in Connecticut, you can have an area like, let's say, for instance, I looked at some rental properties, Colchester, Connecticut, mm-hmm. Bolton, Connecticut. Mm-hmm. Now, you can get a pretty decent apartment, maybe even a 2-bedroom apartment for $800 or $900 a month. Mm-hmm. But you out in the boondocks. There's really nothing out there.
It's not as big a demand.
So that's why the price gets reduced.
Price is relative to the demand for the property.
Right.
If lots of people if you want to earn more money, mm-hmm. then you may have a product, a good, or a service that people are willing to pay more for. So if you have an upscale apartment building in the middle of Bolton, you may not be able to get the same amount of money as you can in downtown Hartford.
Right.
Because if there's only 200 units, all right, and, there's plenty of people who want to move in there,
yeah,
then the price for the rent, you can command more money.
Well, see, you hear sometimes the criticism that people would say about Hartford, Bridgeport, New Haven, or Waterbury, or our urban cities, but yet people still want to live here. Now, people will leave. I'm not going to say that people haven't left the cities, but if it's so bad, why do the rates cost what they cost?
Because it's not so bad.
It's not so bad. It's just this perception that sometimes the media likes to paint on our cities, that these are not places that you really want to live or whatever. Now, I will admit, people told me in the 90s when people was leaving Hartford that they had to leave because of the school system. They was dissatisfied.
That's a little bit different.
Okay, so they said, look, I had no problem. Well, I guess you have to have a problem if you're leaving because of the school system. You can't say
right. Because you want your kids to get a fairly good education. So if the school system, if you're presented with the school system, they will not teach your children to your level of acceptability. then you wouldn't move into that town. If you had options, you'd go somewhere else, and that becomes a big problem.
Right.
But like I would have no fear of going to Chicago. None. So when I hear on the news that there's killings, murders, this, that, and the third, my first thing is, where in Chicago? Oh, okay. We won't go there. Mm-hmm. We'll stay here.
Right.
So the people in Chicago may interpret it as, you always hear negativity about our city. No, you hear negativity about things going on, but to the people who are not from there, that's not the same thing they're hearing. So the message isn't always what one may think it is, and the news may not be reporting to who you think they are.
Okay.
So if you're going to come into Hartford, it's safe as long as you go in the North End.
Right.
Well, right? So if you live downtown, you ain't got nothing to worry about. Stay out the North End. That's how some people will interpret that. Mm-hmm. They don't interpret it as, we can't go to Hartford. You drive downtown Hartford at nighttime, particularly in the summer, like Thursday through Sunday, it's hopping. Mm-hmm. So all kinds of stuff going on in Hartford.
Well, the one thing I will say, and I plan to be downtown. I'm gonna look at Pratt Street because I heard that Pratt Street in downtown Hartford is fully occupied.
I don't know that it's fully occupied, but Pratt Street, because of efforts and by certain people, is doing much better than it was.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's
much to their credit.
Yeah. So again, the capital city, because I was in West Hartford, and I think I showed you the video. Mixed use development of Blue Black Square.
That's a totally different thing. Apple oranges.
But don't most downtowns usually consist of mixed use development like that? Wouldn't you normally see that? Although I know downtown North is developing and moving in that so-called direction. But really, wouldn't you kind of see what you see in Blue Black Square? Usually that would be downtown Hartford, or that's just a different city, different town?
It's a different city, it's a different town, and the dynamics are different, Jonathan. I mean, it's not what you see only. Mm-hmm. There are things under the surface. Mm-hmm. There are other dynamics. If you lived in one of the residential houses surrounding the ring of downtown, of Midtown West Hartford, you might not be such a happy camper because of the noise, the traffic. It's growing into this center that's very attractive to people, and folks are coming from, what was once town residents. Now there's more people coming there as a destination, and then you start getting a mix of other folks from outside. They're loud at night partying.
Right.
People don't want to go inside the building to use the bathroom. All the kind of, the back, behind the building. Folk, but just nasty human beings. They're people, right?
Right.
And it becomes something that is not attractive for the residents. But the business of downtown West Hartford drives revenue. But the major difference is that the people of West Hartford have much more disposable income, and the people that visit downtown West Hartford have a lot more disposable or discretionary income. Things that they have a bigger budget to go out and just eat, spend $300-400 for a meal.
Right.
You don't have that kind of wealth in Hartford, and Hartford is it's a different downtown. A lot of businesses don't want to be open on, Saturdays or Sundays, and so it's close. So there's a lot of things that have to change as the way that people do stuff, the owners of things, and there are long-term strategic goals and plans that might not be be acceptable by the folks who are currently living there. If you want certain places to change, then you have to get rid of the people that are there because they're not going to change. Right. So you force them out, and then you implement the change. So there's a lot of things that go on. Most people are unaware of the long-term goals and objectives and what it actually takes to get there. They know what they would like, and they want an immediate return and deliverable. Things don't happen that way, and these are all things that city leaders and planners have to reckon with.
Well, I tell you, now like you say, when you compare Boston, it's not a good example. But when Mr. Knight is telling me
Boston is nowhere near. We don't have a harbor,
right? But I'm saying even in Roxbury, Mass, which is the urban inner city of Boston, you could be paying $2,500 a month for rent.
But look at the population and the demand.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the key.
You can't charge $2,500 a month in a highly urbanized area if
the demand.
There's no demand.
Right. Well, see, again, Stan, you take an example of the demand side, like Hartford, Connecticut. Let's say you have to pay to live on average $1,300 a month for a modest, in some cases, a modest 2-bedroom apartment. Now you go to Bolton because there's no demand to live in Bolton. You could get a very nice 2-bedroom apartment for $800, $900. So you're saving money. But do you really want to live in Bolton?
Why not?
Well, you might say it's nothing to do. You take a person.
So go out and go someplace where they're doing something.
Well, is society pushing people, like you just mentioned, out? I don't know if you say it's regenification. You don't think
No. Society doesn't push people out. People live everywhere.
Right.
There's people who live in Bolton, grew up, and there's people who not only live in Bolton, there's people in Bolton never left Bolton.
Right. But I'm saying for a person, because I used to run across many people in the 90s, they would say, well, they had to go live in New Britain or Enfield because the rents were just going up. So they went there. And
no one was forcing them out. The rent was more than they could pay. And what people have traditionally done is if you can't afford something, you move to a place that's more affordable.
Well, that's what was happening. That's what I was saying. That's what was happening in Enfield. And the people that I knew was moving to Enfield and New Britain. The people that had issues with the school system was moving to Windsor and Bloomfield, but the people that just had issues with they couldn't afford the rent and maybe some other personal factors, they wanted to probably get away from some issues or whatever, they were going to Enfield, New Britain, I think even Bristol at one point. And I could never really figure out, but then I started to realize, okay, maybe you are saving a good amount of, maybe you just can't, like you say, you just can't afford to live.
There you go. They can't afford to live there. They've been priced out.
Is this a good thing we have, that we're having people priced out?
It's not good or bad. It just is. Mm-hmm. If you can't afford to live someplace, then you can't afford to live someplace.
Right. So the development downtown, that 15 to 3,000, is that good, or that's just the way it is? You think that's just not about what is good or bad?
That's not good or bad. It's just the cost of the place, and everyone may want to live there, but they can't afford it.
Right.
Is the developer the bad guy because he put an apartment up that you can't afford? That's not his fault, because there's people who can't afford it.
Right.
Now, people say how unaffordable stuff is. Folk was moving in here from New York and they snapping up places because it's so affordable. Mm-hmm. These things are all relative. And, I don't want to go all into the weeds and stuff, but if you live in a town where you elect representatives and you have to hard sell things you want to them, then they don't represent you. Mm-hmm. And if you sit back and allow that, then so be it.
Yeah. Right.
You hire someone to paint your house, you come home and they got polka dots on the wall. You ask them to paint the room a soft, yellow. Mm. And he said, well, this room needs to have some pop to it, so I put polka dots on the wall. Mm-hmm. And you say, oh, okay, well, it does kind of look nice. Mm-hmm. Now it's your fault.
All right.
So people have to understand that there are always competing forces for things to get done. There are people who want it to be done one way, people who want it to be done a different way. And if you don't speak up, then your way won't be the one that's done. And if there are people who can't afford to live in a place, and they find ways to make it through, whether they're being subsidized or whether they're working hard and working 2 jobs and a side hustle to make ends meet, which just shouldn't be nothing new to most people. Everybody got grandparents and parents who worked hard to make ends meet, to send their kids to school or to move to someplace. That's how that happens. I don't know where we got derailed into thinking that because I want something, it should be granted to me.
Right.
But, you living in that place, things seem to be cool, and then someone comes here from someplace else and sees, look at all of this stuff. These people are sitting on a gold mine. They don't even realize it. And they start buying up a little piece of property here and buying up a piece of property there and buying up a piece of property there. And now they see potential. They see where they could get 3 times the amount of money for your house or your building. The problem is you live there. So they either buy you out or cause rents to go up and force you out. Now other people can come in. That's just human. That's the way human beings behave. They colonize, occupy, and they see something that you have and they want it. You won't sell it to them, so they take it. I mean, people. I don't know where people are living. They're not living in the real world. If you don't defend it, it'll be gone.
Right.
At the end of the day,
Right.
It'll be gone. So. You have people who you elect to office to help defend these things. You create laws. You create zoning laws. That's how all these things happen, because people want to defend what they have. But if you don't know how to do that or won't do it, then you wind up on the short end of the stick, in my never to be humble opinion.
Right. Well, the one thing, Stan, let's again use Pratt Street as an example. Even if it's not 100% fully occupied, it looks like it's clearly moving in a good direction to have the businesses either under contract to open up, and at some point, because at one point it seemed like every business at in some areas of downtown was just going out of business or just not growing.
And then don't forget, the pandemic does have a profound impact on downtown.
But will we ever see a Whole Foods store? Because I know we have this in common, Stan. We both like Whole Foods.
There's not going to be Whole Foods downtown.
Right.
Now, let me not say that. As long as the conditions downtown are what they are, there will not be a Whole Foods. So rather than to try and get a Whole Foods downtown, create the type of environment downtown that would attract a Whole Foods. That's my thinking. Make downtown the kind of place that Whole Foods says, we got to have a store downtown Hartford.
Right.
Then you'll get one. They're not coming because you want them there. They come because there's an economic incentive for them to be there. They're going to make money.
Right. So if a Whole Foods store opened downtown North, it wouldn't be profitable. They wouldn't be able to make enough money to sustain.
There's no reason for Whole Foods to open up there. None. Otherwise, they would be open.
So the people that currently go to Save-A-Lot shopping on Main Street, they wouldn't go to Whole Foods store if you put it right, let's say next to the Dunkin' Donuts Stadium. You put it somewhere in that area. The people that like good food that go to Save-A-Lot or go to Price Right up in Windsor Shopping Center, you couldn't get those people to come to Whole Foods, or that wouldn't be sustainable even if they did come to Whole Foods store. I don't know how the Whole Foods run their operation, but I'm just saying.
I think Whole Foods runs their operation like every other business. Money.
Right.
Price Right makes money, or the Save-A-Lot makes money, because they know their customers will pay X amount of money.
Right.
Right? So you get salmon from Save-A-Lot. It's frozen.
Right.
I I don't know how much it is a pound.
Right.
I don't want to sound all elitist, as I'm always accused of being. But I guarantee you it ain't $15 a pound.
No, it's not. You better have some money when you go in the Whole
It's not $15 a pound.
Right.
And so they're willing to pay. Now, if they could choose between the $3 a pound frozen salmon and the $15 a pound fresh salmon, never frozen,
Right.
what do you think they would
The
choose?
fresh shell.
That's why Whole Foods is not going to make any money.
Right. Right. So
Because people will go in there and say, these prices are ridiculous. I'm not paying this for that.
Mm-hmm.
They don't, they may not understand that food is medicine. So invest on what goes in,
Right.
so you don't have to invest on getting what's wrong with you because of what you ate out.
Well, I tell you, I was in Whole Foods yesterday, and I never bought sliced pizzas, but it was excellent. I was talking to the person, asking them what type of ingredients is on the pizza, and he was breaking it down to me. I forgot the name. I know garlic was one and other healthy products, but it tasted good, and it was a pretty big slice for the 2 slices. So instead of me going to some Save-A-Lot store or some other Bravo where they may have a sliced pizza, but is it really freshly made? Was it just frozen and they just rewarmed it up? So my choice is to go to Whole Foods and buy the fresh, good quality pizza. It was two for $7.50.
On your recommendation, the next time we get pizza, we're going to get it from Whole Foods. We have considered it,
Okay.
but just wasn't sure what it tastes like. Although my wife and kids have gotten pizza from Whole Foods.
From Whole Foods.
Yeah, I let me change. Yeah. It's my daughter 7 won't eat pizza, but from one place. So
I mean, it was pretty tasty. I mean, and it filled me up. So I mean, I'm very selective on what I eat.
I know you.
But again, the bottom line is Whole Foods just can't generate or sustain a profit in the urban.
There are people who say that Whole Foods would make money, this, that, and the third, but they have to. One, you have to give them an economic incentive to move in. Then you start laying out how much money comes in and how much money is available and how much money is spent in other places. And so if Whole Foods comes in, then Save-A-Lot and all those other price rights, those stores would have to close. Bravos, they would go out of business.
Here's another component. When I was in Whole Foods yesterday and even earlier this week, and I saw people spending $200 at some point, and it could have been more. Not one time did I see an EBT card. Now, if you go even the Stop and Shop at the first or the third of the month, I'll see the carriage jam pack. Now I know these people are not paying $300 in cash. So I'm not saying anything. Nothing restricts you from paying. Money is money.
You can use EBT cards in Whole Foods.
You can, but I'm just saying I didn't see anybody. I've never seen anybody in there use an EBT card. So the people that's going to Price Right, I guess they're still budgeting their money stand. They still want to get more, even though they could probably go to Whole Foods.
People want to get the most for what money they have.
Right.
People need to think differently. If you eat quality, clean food, it is better for your health.
Exactly.
You're less likely to be overweight. There are a lot of benefits to eating healthy. You then become less susceptible to certain diseases, so that you're not spending your money on prescriptions, seeing a doctor all the time. See, it's a matter of where your money, how and where you spend it. All right. At the end of the day, you want a good quality of life. You want to be healthy.
Yeah, but
and if the people shop at Whole Foods, you use EBT card at Whole Foods.
You can use it there.
You can go there and get meat and get dairy.
Right.
Then go over here to get your canned goods or something like that. But people just have to think more strategically, and they also have to think of food as being medicine. Now, there's an effort to get people to think of food as being medicine as part of the justification, the rationalization, and the strategic initiative to get a Whole Foods type market into Hartford. But if people think that way, then they'll start going to Whole Foods now. If all of the people who talk about a Whole Foods type market started just going there, then Whole Foods might put something here.
Might put something here.
Because they could see the people are actually, rather than them keep coming out here, why don't we move in there? Because there's a demand. There's no demand. There's a want.
Yeah.
There's an expressed we want to have, we deserve, but that's not a demand. That doesn't guarantee me that if I come there, you're gonna come to my store and shop.
Well, see, Stan, I still go to Stop and Shop because there's still some things I like at Stop and Shop, like certain almond milk that I don't really see in Whole. I mean, they have almond milk.
Whole Foods don't have everything. We don't.
Yeah.
When we go to Whole Foods, we don't go to the shop. We shop there for meat, fish,
yeah,
dairy,
right. But I mean, I like their food better. I mean, even their greens, vegetables. I like organic
and vegetables.
food. Yes.
Right. We go to Walmart for everything.
You go.
else.
So your Walmart is like me going to Stop and Shop.
I don't go to Stop and
You
Shop.
don't go to Stop and Shop. But I think Walmart and Stop and Shop is more on the same level towards the. They may have a different how they section the food out.
Nobody beats Walmart for the prices. For your chips, your canned goods, you can't beat Walmart.
The price, right? But you stop the same quality of food that you have in Walmart is about the same as it is in Stop.
Yeah.
It's
Same
just the
brand,
price, the same brand. Yes.
Right.
With Whole Foods, you're getting an A grade type of quality, from many different components.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So, but I mean, that's something that people have to rethink. I mean, obviously,
and there's places that have stuff better than Whole Foods.
That's true too. Right. But Whole Food is right up there as one of the top brands.
Right. And it's in this area.
Right. I'll do that. So, but I mean, like you say, people got to just however you budget your money and your interest on what you want. I mean, if you're buying mostly junk food, you're just looking at, I can get all of this food, processed meat, all that stuff. It's not
chemicals
healthy.
In it. It's not healthy for you, and it's killing you.
Mm-hmm. So this is a real big important subject matter that people need to look at.
Well, what would be interesting is to get a nutritionist in here to talk about those kinds of things. Because, all right, so if you got the worst supermarkets in the hood and the food in there is killing people, then you got diabetes, high blood pressure, you got overweight, you got eye problems, dental problems. Folk got all kind of problems because of the type of food they eat. Then all of the people that make money serving their problems. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's a big system where everyone's profiting off of their misery.
Well, even with the Food and Drug Administration, I mean, they're trying to make some restrictions. I think you're finding less and less trans fats in certain. Even McDonald's is removing trans fats. That's one of the worst fats you can have.
It is, but you know what? It'd be better if you made your hamburger at home.
Mm-hmm. That's true too.
And you got real fish.
Yeah. So don't even go, and you'll be not surprised, but McDonald's.
Right. And McDonald's is expensive.
It's gone up tremendously.
It's expensive. So if you go to McDonald's, you could what you could buy at Whole Foods.
Yeah.
For what you went and spent at McDonald's.
Yeah. Well, that's what I do most of the time. I buy my ground beef and make my own burgers from Whole Foods meat. Although someone just gave me some misinformation. He was telling me at work that beef is not red meat, but beef is red meat. I don't know why. I don't know where he get this definition.
Beef is absolutely.
Yeah, he's telling me, well, that's the one.
Beef is absolutely red meat. Someone's calling in.
Okay.
Brother Lou.
Hey, good morning, brothers. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay. Good morning.
Hey, I just wanted to say good morning to you, gentlemen, and to let you know that I'm enjoying the conversation, and just keep doing the work that y'all doing, man. It's great. It's wonderful to hear that, man.
Thanks for listening, Lou. I didn't even realize that you was listening to this program.
You never know who's listening.
You never know who's listening. I listen to y'all program on Wednesdays, but it's good to know that you're listening.
I'm listening to everybody else's program because there's a lot of incredible information that's being put out. And particularly this segment, I like the food conversation that you are having, because it's just so important, man. I can't, impress that enough. That it's an incredible topic in our community, because, food is the way that we're going to be healthy.
Absolutely.
Not through medicine, but through food.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Food is medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes.
people don't understand. If you're gonna pay extra for something, pay extra for your food.
Right.
Because you are what you eat.
Literally, Stan, a lot of people don't get that. Literally, you are what you eat. And when you buy the good quality and, the organic stuff that doesn't have the pesticides,
yep,
you're really making an investment in yourself. So
absolutely.
think about it like invested in yourself.
Yep.
Well, Stan, the only thing what you're saying is, like, what you can get at Walmart's, you'll still select something that's a good food, but you will just go there and save less than going to Stop and Shop.
It's certain foods you buy at Walmart. Like if you're gonna get Doritos,
okay,
or Fritos. It don't matter where you get them. You can get them in a bodega, you can get them at Walmart, you can get them. Whole Foods doesn't sell Fritos.
They don't.
No, they have a kind of something like it, but it's more organic,
and that's what I buy.
And it doesn't have it's not like 50% salt.
Right. I don't.
It's better for you. But if you're going to get Fritos, then you want to go where it sells the cheapest.
Right.
So you want to save money there. But if you're going to buy certain things, your vegetables, there's a reason why people pay a premium price, and why the life expectancy of people who eat these foods and have these certain supermarkets is higher than where we are. So if you're buying your food this in a store that might not be upscale in terms of standards, some of the food on the shelf is over the date.
Yeah.
Other food, when I was campaigning, I won't even say where, but I was in a certain part of the city, and car after car after car after car kept pulling up in front of this store. And they were getting out of the car with crates of soda.
Yeah.
And it became obvious after a while that either people are stealing the soda and bringing it to the store, or they were getting the sodas from someplace and bring. But it wasn't like a Coca-Cola truck pulled up. They were different people. It wasn't like employees going out buying sodas, but they were getting the sodas from someplace else. So they were either like leftover sodas. Long story short is you're not getting the best quality. And if you don't get good quality food in you, then you're going to be less capable. The way you think, the way you operate, the way your body interacts with the certain chemicals that are in the atmosphere, all of that is premised on what you put in your body. That's the only defense you have is good food.
So Stan, what I would add to this conversation, brother, is that I heard you say that nobody beats Walmart. And I think that Aldi's gives them a run for their money, but they don't have as many products as Walmart. But they have very good prices and very good food. And the other thing is that I don't care what store or what neighborhood you buy a soda in or what kind of soda you buy, you're making a very bad investment.
Oh, soda's terrible for you.
It is. I stopped drinking soda a long time ago. I can't tell.
We have to look at all of that, because we always talk about on all these shows about how we accept things, but we have to do better for the way that ourselves that it starts with us. So
yeah.
Well, thank you, brothers. I love the conversation today, and I just wanted to say good morning and keep up the good work, man.
All right, we'll see you on Wednesday.
Yes, sir, you will. All right, peace, brothers, peace.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Yeah, Luis Delgado.
Yeah, I'm glad he's looking at the show. I didn't even
Talk
realize.
Champion from Wednesday.
Champion. I try to catch it once every Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, food. I mean, obviously you got to be educated in knowing, what you should be eating. I mean, I didn't always eat the right type of food. As a child, I used to always drink soda, and they told me I was drinking too much soda. But then I just started saying I wanted to reduce my sugar intake, and soda is just not a good drink, especially if you're drinking Coca-Cola. I don't know how anybody. I guess you're addicted to that caffeine or something about Coca-Cola or Pelt. It doesn't even taste good to me. It may have a certain taste to it that people gravitate or let's say they like.
Yeah, Coca-Cola, like the number one sodas in the world.
It is definitely something about it that people love, But I'm just not a soda drinker anymore.
Used to be the Coke.
Yeah, to do that.
That's what people loved about Coca-Cola.
Yeah,
the cocaine,
yeah, that's in it, or that's why they call it the
addict you to it.
Well, you pour cola over a what, like a battery, you see the acid. I mean, let's think about it.
Yeah, these things aren't good for you. I will dabble from time to time with a little Mountain Dew.
You told me that before.
I like Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
So
anything in moderation.
Anything in moderation.
Moderation is not that bad for you.
Right. The best drink you can have. Water.
Water, yeah. And I drink organic water too. But like I was saying, I mean, at least I'm getting water. What is the best water?
So back that up a little bit. So now, what is organic water?
Well, they say it has actually organic flavors, like it has watermelon, lemon, and lime.
Because I don't know how much more organic you can get than water. I mean, like water is like the real basic.
It's the flavor that they put in the water that I drink. They have organic flavors, like watermelon is one, lemon and lime, apple, blueberry. So I just like the taste. So when I say organic, I'm talking about the organic flavor that they put in the water.
For the most part, I haven't totally stopped drinking soda, but I drink now lemonade, which is my favorite drink, and I always make my own
lemonade. Okay,
so I always have lemonade in the house that I make, and my kids don't. My wife buys the lemonade for. They drink, but I make the lemonade.
Well, I drink sometime apple juice, but again, everything I drink mostly is going to be organic or very low sugar intake. You want to cut your sugar take. When you get above 20 grams, and even that's kind of high, I'd like to stay 15 and less. Less sugar.
Grams of sugar?
Grams of sugar, yes. 20 is kind of, I think that's.
How much is a teaspoon?
Well, when I look at the label, I just see the grams on the back of the label. Maybe they're going by how much that you pour. It might be a teaspoon. It might be a tablespoon.
I will take a cup of coffee. I like coffee.
Yeah, well, I drink tea. But I mean, I buy sugar, but again, I buy organic sugar. I don't use the white sugar. So I buy organic sugar.
Honey? Do honey?
Every now and then. I use the sugar more than the honey, but every now and then I'll take some honey.
Brown sugar.
Brown sugar, yeah. Organic brown sugar. But again, feel like you got choices. Don't feel like you're limited to what you can purchase. We're probably, like you say, most likely not going to get a Whole Food store in the Hartford area.
Not as long as profit drives things.
Yeah.
It's been my observation. This is just Stan, not say the world. It's not necessarily the truth. I'm just one guy with two sets of eyes. No, one set of eyes. Two eyes, not two sets of eyes. One guy with two eyes, one set of eyes. I have observed that where there's a profit to be made, someone's going to be there to make it.
Right.
And you put a Walmart up, across the street something else comes. You put a Lowe's up, next thing, there's a Home Depot. Put a Burger King, there's a McDonald's, then there's a Wendy's. Everybody knows you can make money off of it. They start coming.
Right.
And so if there was money to be made, with all of the clamoring of people who want a supermarket in Hartford, if there's money to be made, then the supermarket will come. Now, the only exception to that is there are people who would like to put a supermarket in Hartford down by the bus depot.
Yes.
On North Main Street.
North Main Street, right.
And that person's been told no. The city has worked ceaselessly to prohibit him from putting a supermarket.
And this person wants to put
wants to put a supermarket.
Yeah.
And he's a businessman that's respected in the city. So, sometimes the strategic long-term plans of people that are sitting at heights that are way above, they say no because they have other ideas. And those things are part of the reality and where we live. Because there's the people who want to do things and they'll speak out about what they would like to have. But the powers that be, these folks up here that can actually finance their dreams, wants, aspirations, if they get in your way, there's very little you can do sometimes.
Well, if the whole big picture is that they don't want this person to have a supermarket in the city, then that's one thing. I mean, if they said if he wanted to move it to, I guess Pratt Street is unlikely because you probably don't have the space there. No. But somewhere in that downtown, there was talk about having a supermarket in the downtown.
Well, there was one in Harvard 21. You remember that one? I think they spent $700,000.
I thought there was like some gourmet market.
It was a real high-end supermarket.
High-end that didn't last long. But I'm saying like a wall. Actually, if you had a Walmart or something on that level.
They're not gonna put no Walmart. There's already a Walmart in Hartford, right. Flatbush.
So you don't need another one.
No. You can't sustain 2 Walmarts on each side. We're Hartford.
Or a Stop and Shop.
This is not like Los Angeles.
Although I don't know if you realize the history, Stan, but one time Hartford had about 13 supermarkets at one point. But things have definitely changed.
People walked to the supermarket.
That's true.
And the supermarkets made money. And Harvard used to be a different town. Harvard was one of the wealthiest cities in the world at one time, too. But we're not now. So we don't live in the past.
Right.
We live in the present.
Right. I understand that. That's true.
Right. You know who lives in the past?
It could be me.
Dallas fans.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm saying. It could be me. Yeah, it's not 1992. That's all I can say right now. The Cowboys are not looking like the 92 Cowboys.
Throw the ball.
You don't have Troy Aikman throwing to Michael Irvin. But you got to play with what you got.
That was mean. I'm sorry, John.
Yeah, it's a reality. The Cowboys are not as good as they were in 92, 95. They won. That's when they won their last Super Bowl, 95, 96. Hasn't happened since then.
The long drought. All right. Well, we're out of time. Great show.
Thank you.
Great guest. And so we'll do it again. Jonathan Small is here every Monday. Tune in and join us. The great guests, good conversation. Special thanks to our guests. We'll see you all next time. All right. Have a great day, Jonathan.
All right. Thank you. Same to you.
Bye-bye, y'all. See you next time.